Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'd like to call to order the April 22nd, 2024 meeting of the City Council of the City of San Carlos. We are all here in attendance tonight, so no AB 2449 requests. If you could all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll move on to item 4, changes to the order of the agenda. Jeff, any changes from staff?
Nothing from staff this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Anything from my colleagues? Seeing none, we will move on to presentations. First, we'll receive a presentation on Project Elevate, an initiative focused on promoting financial literacy. Welcome, Ritika.
Sorry, Ritika can't make it today. I'm Linda.
Thank you, Linda.
Hello, my name is Linda Molnar, and I'm a current junior at Carlmont High School, and I'm here to talk to you about Project Elevate, a financial literacy program that I have co-founded and that has won the state-level career development conference called DECA and will be moving on to the International Career Development Conference. Our society today is facing an alarming financial literacy crisis. Looking at current adults, 90% of millennials are in debt, with only 57% of them passing basic financial literacy standards. And in California specifically, only 31% of residents are at or below the poverty line. And finally, reports show that only 17% of adults received financial literacy education. And this statistic is declining by generation. To fill this gap, we realized that foundational personal finance education needs to be more accessible to youth and to young adults. Unlocking the potential of financial literacy education also requires understanding the prevalent demand and market readiness. Only 22% of high schools in the US offer financial literacy education, while 73% of these students are longing for this impactful education. So the gap between demand and school provisions offers us a compelling opportunity for immense impact. Recognizing this disparity, our mission is to empower youth with the knowledge necessary to approach personal financial management with confidence, bridging the gap between desire and access. And our vision is to provide worldwide financial literacy education to ensure confident and secure futures. So in order to address this problem, we have 4 facets that I want to highlight with you as our solution. Firstly, our online workshops. We have held 5 online workshops covering vital topics including budgeting, credit and debit management, taxes, investing, as well as college preparation. We've also had 2 guest speakers hailing from prestigious universities such as Wharton and Stanford. We've had 160 students participate in these online workshops from 6 different time zones across the nation. Additionally, we are working on a translation into Spanish so that we can further our impact with youth. We've had 1 round of workshops so far, but we will be holding a 2nd round commencing May 4th. Additionally, our in-person class visits. We have taught 17 classrooms at 3 different schools, including Terra Linda Middle School, and we've impacted 355 students with our content. We've covered investing, inflation, budgeting, saving, job ideas for teens, interest and how it compounds, retirement planning, and much, much more. We've also made sure to include interactive simulations, such as a budgeting simulation, to encourage participation so that all students could foster a positive outlook regarding personal finance. We have supplemented our tech teachings with online materials. We have developed a website that features blog posts where students can easily learn more about the topics that most interested them in our presentations. Additionally, we have developed an ebook that is published on the Amazon store where we have worked to market it specifically to teens and ensure that we break down complex financial topics in a simplified manner. We have also worked with a local magazine called The Pilot, where we have been able to share our story and spread awareness to over 6,000 households. Lastly, we emphasize media presence because this is very essential, especially when trying to engage a young audience. We have posted all recordings of our online workshops to our YouTube, where we have gained 165 subscribers, and we regularly post content and updates on our Instagram handle at Project Elevate, where we have over 500 followers. Additionally, we partnered with my math tutoring company, Calc Corner, where we have been able to share some vital information to a large following base, where we have received over 65,000 views. So through a combination of all these efforts, we have reached over 100,000 students and families with our initiative and personally engaged 600 youth. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Linda. Really appreciate that presentation and what an interesting and thorough program you and your colleagues have put together. I congratulate you on that, and I appreciate that everything you have to do at Carlmont as a student, you're able to do this as well, so thank you for that. Do any of my colleagues have any questions of Linda? Councilmember Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Linda, thank you very much. It's quite impressive presentation, and I love what you're doing, and it makes me proud to be a Carlmont grad, so thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Ron. Terrific. Seeing no other questions, congratulations again, and thank you for the presentation. All right, we will move on to 5B, which is we're going to present a proclamation recognizing this month as Parkinson's Awareness Month in San Carlos. And Vikas, would you like to come forward to receive the proclamation? Okay. I guess, are they attending remotely?
I was expecting him in person. No, I don't see him online either. He did confirm though, but
Okay, was he planning a presentation?
Not a presentation, but he was planning to speak on the item.
Okay. I will go ahead and read the presentation. Parkinson is certainly something that impacts our community, and we've recognized this in prior years and remains a priority, and it is important. So I will read this proclamation. Whereas Parkinson's disease is a chronic progressive neurological disease and is the second most common neurodegenerative disease in the United States, and whereas Parkinson's disease is the 14th leading cause of death in the United States, and the prevalence is expected to rise to 1.2 million by 2030, and whereas there is no objective test or biomarker for Parkinson's disease, and there is no cure or drug to slow or halt the progression of the disease, whereas increased research, education, and community support services such as those provided by the Parkinson's Foundation and other organizations are needed to find more effective treatments and to provide access to quality care to those living with the disease today. And whereas this year's Parkinson's Awareness Month theme, ABCs of Parkinson's disease, increases the awareness of all intricacies of the disease as well as promotes available resources. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that I, John Dugan, Mayor of the City of San Carlos, on behalf of the entire City Council, in recognition of the importance of the ongoing fight against Parkinson's disease, do hereby proclaim April 2024 as Parkinson's Awareness Month in the City of San Carlos. Oh, terrific. Great. I'm glad you're here. If you could please come forward, I'll present this to you live.
Sorry, we had a little snafu getting out here today. Thank you all.
Terrific. I can hand it to you here. Thank you for coming. Absolutely. And did you have a few words for us?
I would love to say a few words if that's okay.
Okay, terrific. Okay. There's your proclamation. Thank you for making it.
Thank you.
Feel free.
I'm going to hand this to my. So, sorry.
If you can speak at the microphone, please.
Okay. All right. Great. Members of the City Council, thank you very much for having us. Thank you for making this proclamation. Forgive us for being late. Have childcare constraints.
I would say just in time, so well done.
Great, great. I have children in the district, both Sharon and I do, who are playing various sports and things like that we have going on right now. So thank you again for having us, for recognizing the Parkinson's community. This is the second year we're doing this. Last year I was here with Dr. Salima Brillman, who's also a parent in the district and a movement disorder specialist. She's my doctor, and she's taken great care of me over the last 2.5 years. Today I have with me Sharon Budwal and Somil Bhushan. Sharon moved here from England. Her mother has Parkinson's disease back in England, and when she heard about what we were doing here today, and that this is the second year that we've taken a moment to recognize the Parkinson's community, make a statement about who we are as a community and how we support our citizens, she was really impressed and felt even more welcome than she has for the last several months, having come to San Carlos. And so, you know, we are the city of good living. We're also the city of being welcoming and caring about our citizens. And so this is, you know, a moment to recognize that. Somil is a aspiring medical student who works with Dr. Brillman in our community. He's a volunteer of the Parkinson's Foundation, and we introduced him to Dr. Brillman, and he's since been doing research with her in the area of Parkinson's. His grandmother has Parkinson's as well, and so it's a personal interest to him. So he's up here working with Dr. Brillman this week, meeting with patients and that type of thing. So a couple things I just want to very quickly say thank you to the citizens of San Carlos and to the City Council. You know, it's a serious topic, but you know, there's always room for a little bit of humor. So if you can see this, it says "got dopamine." You know, let's not forget that we can talk about serious things with a little bit of humor and make things lighter. And then I'd also like to say, for those of you who don't know anyone with Parkinson's or much about Parkinson's disease, it's a neurological disorder that affects nearly 1 million Americans. As you know, just heard, April is Parkinson's Awareness Month, and of the 1 million Americans that suffer from Parkinson's disease, nearly 5 to 6% are below the age of 50. I'm one of them. It's considered young onset Parkinson's, and much like COVID, the more testing we do, the more we find out there are a lot of people suffering from Parkinson's at earlier ages and not getting diagnosed until later. And that's something that we're looking to change. I'm actively involved in working with the Parkinson's community here on the peninsula. We have hundreds of people that suffer from Parkinson's. We have boxing classes and ping pong classes that we run. We also have drumming and vocal classes that we do for the Parkinson's patients. And so having a proclamation like this just supports our efforts in reaching that community. And finally, I'll just say one thing that's really unique about having Parkinson's, and that is that while there's empathetic people everywhere, when you live in the body of a person who, you know, walks out the door, skips out the door almost, and crawls back in, it's a unique experience that you live with, and it gives you a unique perspective on the world, and it reminds you that there are people everywhere living with something that you know nothing about. And so it's what I call a gift as a member of the community, not a club I want to be a part of, but a unique form of empathy that the people with Parkinson's have, that they traverse the world in a way that allows them to look at everyone and accept that they may be suffering from something that is not visible to the average person. So just wanted to share that and recognize Parkinson's Awareness Month. Thank you again, City Council, for the proclamation. Thank you for taking the time to do this.
Great. Thank you, Vikas. I'm glad we were able to make this proclamation, and I appreciate you sharing a bit of your story. Do any of my colleagues have any comments on this item? Seeing none, we'll move on to 5C, which is we're going to present a proclamation recognizing April 26, 2024 as Arbor Day in the city of San Carlos. And joining me will be Amy Newby, our Park and Rec Director, whom I will award the proclamation to. Thank you for coming up, Amy. We do like our trees here in San Carlos, so very glad to be doing this. So whereas in 2011, the city of San Carlos had the distinction of being designated as a member of Tree City USA, which signifies a commitment to sustaining its urban canopy. And whereas in commemoration of being a member of Tree City USA, the city of San Carlos hosts an annual event in recognition of Arbor Day. And whereas Arbor Day is a celebration observed throughout the nation and the world in which individuals and groups are encouraged to plant, care for, and celebrate the many values of trees. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community, now, therefore, be it proclaimed that I, John Dugan, Mayor of the City of San Carlos, on behalf of the entire City Council, urge our community to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. And furthermore, I urge all community members to plant and care for trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. Thank you.
I'll be very brief. But so to be designated as a Tree City USA, one, it takes into consideration the love we give our trees year round. So the maintenance, the pruning, the planting that we do in our community. And then also it encourages communities to celebrate trees for a day. So we actually took that opportunity yesterday at Day of Service at one of our park locations to do some planting and then also plant a tree, which was at Loyola Park. And then just a little Day of Service recap. Yesterday, we had a total of 89 volunteers in the community out in our parks doing some downtown planting. Sarah might say a little bit about it. And then also at other projects at the schools and other areas. There were a total of 16 projects community-wide, and there were 4 city projects. So Loyola, Highlands, the downtown planting, and then at the youth center, they did some volunteer work at the garden. So thank you, Mayor, for the designation, and this will get us one step closer to being designated again as a Tree City USA for Arbor Day. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Amy. I'm glad our Park and Rec Department was so involved this year, and nice timing for our Day of Service. I'm glad you guys harnessed that to get some trees planted in town. We appreciate that. Do my colleagues have any comments to make on our Arbor Day proclamation? Seeing none, and they may well be holding out for item 6, council communications and announcements. Do any of my colleagues have any community announcements they would like to make? Councilmember Venkatesh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say happy Earth Day and happy Passover to those who celebrate. I also want to announce the Child Care Subcommittee is proud to host the first Child Care Open House Saturday, May 4th from 10 to noon at the San Carlos Library. It's on the 2nd floor in the conference room, so we'd be glad to have everyone participate.
Terrific. Thank you, Pranita. Vice Mayor McDowell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have 2 communications. First, on Saturday, I dropped by the Teen Wellness Retreat at the Youth Center. This year it was done in conjunction with Belmont, and I went to commend Emma Licko on our staff, as well as our Youth Advisory Council, for an incredible day. There were panels. Teens from San Carlos and Belmont were invited. The room was packed. There were panels for teaching teens how to deal with stress in a constructive way. There was gentle nutrition, time management skills, art therapy, healthy social media engagement. There was a job search skills panel. There were therapy dogs and a resource fair. It was all so very impressive. And as someone who has focused quite a bit on mental health in our community, I have heard time and time again just how much our teens struggle. And I feel like this wellness retreat really hit all the right notes to really give our teens the skills that they need to be healthy and successful. So job very well done to our staff. And then on Sunday, I attended the San Carlos Day of Service, and I want to give special thanks to Lauren Bird on our staff, who oversaw all the planning for this very big all-day volunteer service event where members of the community volunteered all over town. Amy mentioned several of the projects. We also had several community members who were volunteering on our planning committee, and I want to give them a quick shout out: Devora Kotari, Lucy Ricca, Chris Cook, Jennifer Gaburi from the school district, and Wendy Shatino on our staff as well. Our public works crews had a big hand in many of our public projects. I volunteered up at Highlands planting plants, and the crew was so wonderful up there. I worked with a bunch of key clubbers and a wonderful young lady named Sabrina. I went to Mariposa Upper Elementary School. I watched a brownie troop plant a new mint garden at our library. So it was just really wonderful to see so many members of our community out there making our community a better place. So I want to thank everyone who made the day so successful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah, and thank you for your weekend of service. And I heard great things about that teen wellness event as well. I spent the weekend supporting our Chamber of Commerce at their Progress Seminar, which pulls together many of the electeds in San Mateo County and elsewhere, and many other community leaders. A lot was discussed. A theme I picked up on was protecting and valuing our democracy, and a lot of panelists touched on that, and it was a very worthy discussion. Do any of my other colleagues have community announcements to make? Seeing none, we will move on to item 7, which is public comment. This is for items that are not on tonight's agenda. If members of the public would like to speak and they're in the room, they may fill out a speaker card in the corner and turn into our city clerk, and they may speak. If you're at home on Zoom, now would be the time to raise your hand in order to participate in our public comment this evening. Crystal, do we have any speaker cards from folks in the room?
Yes, we have 2 at the moment. If you can approach the podium here, Debbie Chang, and you'll be followed by Chris Ken.
Welcome, Debbie.
Stand here and I can just start? Okay.
Yeah. And we do limit public comment to 2 minutes.
Okay, all right. My name is Debbie Chang. I'm here to speak about equitable, transparent, and predictable access to the sports fields of San Carlos. One of our daughters plays on a softball team where over 80% of the girls and their families live in San Carlos. We asked the Parks and Rec Department for field use for 90 minutes, 2 to 3 times a week this spring. However, we were told that there was no field space available as the fields across all of San Carlos were full. This seems strange to us because Flanagan Field often sits empty. What we discovered is that organizations reserve entire swaths of time but don't necessarily use it. For example, a single organization reserved nearly 2,596 hours from the months of March to May across 3 fields, Highlands, Flanagan, and Terra Linda, notably all of the after-school time on Flanagan. Compare this to our request of 360 hours or less for the same period.
If this organization actually consumed the 2,596 hours they reserved, that would be one thing, but they haven't. We made approximately 80 visits across a 5-week period between March 1st and April 19th, from Monday to Friday on non-rain days. The biggest takeaway is that on Flanagan, we observed that during approximately 45% of their reserved times, the fields were unoccupied, especially after 7:30 p.m. In fact, during one of the weeks in April, the lights were turned off at 8. There was no field use beginning at 7:30, and this organization had the field until 9. Our tax dollars went into building those lights only to have them not used. What a waste. We recently began monitoring TL, and the story is the same. Parks and Rec has not responded to our concerns. Instead, they offered our team last-minute access. Last-minute and unpredictable access does not equate to access. Sports teams must know when and where they need to be far in advance. Even our girls wonder why we can't use Flanagan. As parents, none of us have good responses for them when the Flanagan field sits empty, especially since spring, we've had to drive to San Mateo to practice. We would appreciate your help in opening up field access and the reservation system to all San Carlos residents fairly, ensuring that the fields are fully utilized. Thanks.
Thank you, Debbie. That does sound like something maybe we could take a look at. Jeff, if you and Amy could take a look and follow up with Debbie, and maybe we could figure out a better way to make allocations.
Yeah, sounds like we probably need to bring the leadership of the various sports organizations in town together to talk about this issue with them so we can get them to tighten up their booking with us.
Terrific. And I think we charge by student per season. Maybe some form of hourly rate would make sense, so they had an incentive not to just to overbook time, but you guys will figure that out. Thank you. Next is this.
Hi, my name is Chris Ken. In the mid-2000s, the city of San Carlos was experiencing a severe financial difficulties due to stagnant property tax base driven by Prop 13. By 2010, it had disbanded its fire and police departments and laid off city staff. It was during this time we purchased one of the few remaining virgin lots in San Carlos to build our home. You would think the city would have welcomed new construction and the addition to the property tax base. Yet after 5 years, 2 years in planning, 3 years in building, we'd still not received our building permit. In desperation, we reached out to the city council and stated if things did not change soon, we were going to sell our land and build a house somewhere else. The council arranged a meeting between us, Al Savay, Chris Valley, and the plan checker. During the meeting, while presenting our story, the plan checker could no longer hold her emotions and started yelling at us. It is people like you wanting to build houses like yours that keep people like me from ever living in San Carlos, after which she stormed out of the meeting. Mr. Savay was quick to respond, I want to be clear, that is not my policy, the city policy, or the department policy, and you will have your permit by the end of the week. We later found out our home was the first major residential construction to occur in San Carlos in nearly 10 years. After our meeting, the city started using an outside consulting firm to review plans. It was at this moment San Carlos saw its housing boom and subsequent significant increase in property tax base. This shows how a single individual can have a significant impact on the welfare of a city. We hope something similar is not happening with the Parks and Rec Department, but the optics do raise some questions. There is an external organization whose president is part of the Parks and Rec Commission, yet they've been allowed to monopolize the softball and baseball fields for over 700 hours a month, utilizing less than 400, preventing San Carlos sports clubs from regularly using the fields. We encourage San Carlos City Council to review the policies, practices of field allocation and reservations to ensure fair, equitable, and transparent access to the sports fields for all San Carlos sports clubs and residents. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate that public comment. And Jeff, if you could follow up with Chris as well with the field sport issue. Crystal, do we have any more in-person public comment this evening?
I don't have any, but you may approach the lectern.
Okay. Yeah. Hand that to the city clerk, please.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, council members, for your time this evening. I'm here with a request from the city related to something similar that Debbie just mentioned earlier about reserving the fields for different types of sports. And I'm noticing the same problems that Debbie mentioned, that the fields are reserved by several leagues and they are not utilized. We've been trying to book fields for a sport called cricket, which is a sport that is played in several countries like Australia, New Zealand, India, Pakistan, and some of the African countries. And we started since last year, but City has been helpful in giving us whatever field is available. Many a times we are going from every week to week. We have no clarity whether we will be playing, this week or not. And on many occasions, we get the response at the last minute and we've showed up at the ground. And there are multiple fields in the same bigger section and we see they are left empty. I can show you a picture of this last Sunday where I was told that it is blocked and there is nobody on the field when I passed through from there. And it's unfortunate that the resources are blocked and are not, other citizens are not able to use them. And we need to have a better system for reserving these resources and making sure that everybody has an equal right. I was also told that, these leagues pay several thousands of dollars to the city. That's why they have, they get preferences on reserving these grounds. I'm not sure if this is true or not. I haven't had a chance to look into it, but it just felt unfair to be told that and not being able to utilize the resources that we have and just getting, seeing them empty, and it just felt frustrating because I've been trying very hard to bring a community together to, do this. And it'll be great if City looks into it. And we are requesting about 3 hours every week morning, and we have a set time that our schedule is not going to fluctuate. So it's easier to just, put it in the schedule.
If you could wrap up your public comment, please.
One other thing is, in this case, we've had kids from 8-year-old to people from 40 and 50-year-old all playing together.
If you would like to step forward, you could speak into the mic, then folks at home can hear you. And if you could let us know your name as well, that'd be great.
Yeah, my name is Bankim. I'm also San Carlos resident. And the one other thing unique about this group we formed, that we have kids from 6 to 8-year-old all the way to adults as 40 and 50-year-olds playing together. So it's kind of a nice way to also come together and build a community, we feel. So it'd be really great if the city can look into it. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. And sports fields are in high use in San Carlos, but I certainly would support additional sports such as cricket and others. And it sounds like we'll be taking a look at that. So thank you. Crystal, any other public comment in the room this evening?
None for in the room, but we do have one hand up on Zoom at the moment.
Okay, we will turn to Zoom comments. If you would also like to make a Zoom comment, now is the time to raise your hand. And who is our first speaker, Crystal?
We have Josh Safran.
Okay, welcome, Josh. You're on now.
Josh, you should be able to unmute.
Hi, folks. Thanks for making time for us. Thanks for everything you're doing for the community. We have been residents on Carmelita for the last 24 years, and we've made several attempts to draw attention to the traffic issues that we've had on this street. It's a unique situation because we are a relatively small street, and we happen to be a bypass for St. Carlos Avenue. And every day we deal with cut-through traffic that is not from the neighborhood, and every day there is a near miss of traffic accidents waiting to happen. And we've been told by the city that we don't quite fit into the traffic plan, given that the metrics for the block, we've done many metric exercises. In fact, right now there's sensors out on the pavement that just does not show how dangerous it is for the locals here. And we would like to ask the city to reconsider the local plan for transportation, to give us an exception and help us work with the city to find a way to put in traffic calming measures on our block. Every week we have near misses that are really affecting the quality of life on the block. We understand that there are measures in place, which we respect, from the city that are important to keep guidelines. But we ask is that you look at Carmelita as a unique situation and bring it to the attention of the city council to bring an exception to the local transportation management plan to give us the ability to request speed bumps, other traffic calming measures to slow traffic down on our block. And I know I have a few other folks on the block who are joined us here today. If they'd like to weigh in. We've submitted a petition to the city, and we'd like to ask for you to dig a little bit into our unique situation here, given the situation and the size of the street, to help us put traffic calming measures into place. That concludes my public comment, and I'd like to open it up to any other folks on our block that have dialed into this meeting to add any background to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. I know we have been studying and continue to study your street, and our Public Works Department, I know you're already in contact with them, and you may continue to reach out, and I know they're cycling on it. Do we have any other folks for public comment?
Yes, we have one hand up now from George Plusker.
Okay, George.
George, you should be able to unmute. There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
As the commercial says, my wife and I live on Carmelita Drive, and we're further up the block from Josh on the 2200 block. And if you're familiar, we're talking about the west side of Alameda. The block is very curvy on the 2100 block, but right, it appears in front of our house, maybe a couple of houses down, it opens up to a little straightaway. And I'm into cars, and I'm telling you that people consider this to be like a Formula One race where this is the straightaway, and they just gun it in front of our houses. Now, admittedly, with the cars today, the sound is not quite the same as the old-fashioned internal combustion engine, but there are plenty of those too. And they're just opening it up and reaching high rates of speed in that length of the block. So I'm fully in favor of some type of mitigation. I drive extensively in the local area. Redwood City has these kinds of speed bumps. You just shouldn't be able to reach that kind of speed on a block where there are numerous people who are walking, they're walking their dogs, they're walking their children. I think it could be a very dangerous situation if we don't do anything. And I also appreciate all the work that Josh and the council have been doing and Public Works. So thank you very much for your consideration. I do think that this is a warranted environment here, and something needs to be done.
Thank you for your input, George. It's been noted. Do we have any other hands raised online, Crystal?
There are no further hands.
Okay. We will move on to item 8, our consent calendar. Do any of my colleagues want to pull an item from consent for further discussion? Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion to approve consent calendar items A through I.
I move to approve consent items calendar A through H, and item I, adopting ordinance number 1614, an ordinance of the City of San Carlos, amending San Carlos Municipal Code, Chapter 2.24, commissions to update the meeting frequency for the Economic Development Advisory Commission.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Crystal, could you please call roll?
Okay. Councilmember Collins?
Yes.
Councilmember Venkatesh?
Yes.
Councilmember Rack?
Yes.
Vice Mayor McDowell?
Yes.
And Mayor Dugan.
Yes. That approves our consent calendar items. Thank you. We will move on to item 9, reports to council. And this evening, we're going to receive our annual update on police services. If Chief, you'd like to join us?
All right, Mr. Mayor, City Council members, department heads, it's my pleasure here tonight to be here as your Chief of Police to provide you with the annual police services update for 2023. I also like to recognize my Undersheriff, Chris Shung is here from our executive team. And then I also would like to recognize and thank my management analyst, Ivanka Swampilli-Cross, who put together this presentation as well as the staff report in front of you. So, something really exciting happened this year at the Sheriff's Office. For the first time in the agency's history, we decided to allow the deputies and the sergeants to choose where they want to work based on their seniority. So this new change occurred on March 31st, and these are your new patrol teams. And I kind of want to just briefly go over them just to show you the amount of experience and diversity on them. Team 1 is Sergeant Mueller, Deputy DeMaya, Deputy Belafonte, and Deputy Rocha, and his K-9 Atlas. Sergeant Mueller also has the ancillary duty of being our bomb squad commander. Deputy DeMai is a field training officer, and Deputy Belafonte is a member of our SWAT team. Your other day shift team, Team 2, is supervised by Sergeant Barron, Deputy Ramirez, Deputy Larson, and then Deputy Chris Larson, not related, and then Deputy Harper. Sergeant Barron is also one of our SWAT sergeants as his ancillary duty. Deputy Ramirez is a recent lateral transfer to the Sheriff's Office from South San Francisco Police Department. Same for Deputy Larson. She came from the San Francisco Sheriff's Office. And Motor Deputy Larson, he actually started here in San Carlos way back when as a community service officer, so he's promoted his way up. Your Team 3 is Sergeant Barbarian with Deputy Mateo, Deputy Scherschel, and Deputy Pasila. Sergeant Barbarian is one of our field training officer supervisors, so he monitors the field training officers and their trainees through the program. Deputy Mateo has been at the office for over 10 years. Deputy Scherschel is one of our senior field training officers, and Deputy Pasila has been with the Sheriff's Office probably about 3 years, but he spent over 30 years in the city of Belmont before retiring and coming over to the Sheriff's Office. And that's his K-9 is Titan, and Titan and Atlas are both bomb detection dogs. And then finally wrapping it up, Team 4 is Sergeant Cisneros, Deputy Watanabe, Deputy Anzalati, and Deputy Johnson. Sergeant Cisneros has over 30 years with the Sheriff's Office, many of it in investigations or narcotics task force. Deputy Watanabe is one of our newer deputies. Deputy Anzalati is also one of our recent lateral transfers from Mountain View Police Department. I believe he worked with the undersheriff, or maybe he got encouraged to come here. And Deputy Johnson also came from another agency. He actually worked for the Sheriff's Office back in 2005, left for about 10 years, but then decided to come back. So that's wrapping up. Those are your new patrol teams that started here on March 31st. This is the same org chart. I'm acting as your chief of police. Ivanka, I have my management analyst. We have the 4 patrol sergeants. Sergeant Cousins is my administrative sergeant. And then Ariana Aguilar is our records technician. We have 2 detectives assigned to the Bureau, as well as the 2 deputies, 2 K-9 deputies, 6 community service officers, and 2 motor deputies. Okay, moving into NIBRS. So September 1st, 2021, the Sheriff's Office moved to the National Incident-Based Reporting System, or NIBRS. NIBRS was implemented to enhance the quality of data collected by law enforcement promising remarkable benefits to policymakers, public safety professionals, researchers, and the public. NIBRS captures a broader range of offenses, including homicide, rape, burglary, identity theft, and weapons violations, or weapons offenses, totaling 22 categories compared to the old Uniform Crime Reporting System of 8 Part 1 index crimes. NIBRS also offers demographic data about victims and offenders, including age, race, that was previously unavailable through UCR. Additionally, NIBRS documents hate crimes, registers details such as the crime's time and location, victim characteristics, and whether an arrest was made. NIBRS also collects additional information about relationships, bias motivation, gang involvement, suspected drug and alcohol use by the offender. These changes will bring an improved detail and more transparent approach to the crime reporting for the public in the future. So if you look at page 2 or 3 of your staff report, that will actually break down all the different crimes that are covered in these 3, the crimes against person, crimes against property, and crimes against society. We did see a slight uptick in crimes against persons, and that was associated to a simple rise in assaults. We went from 49 last year up to 69. Now, assault can be everything from a simple push or like a fist fight, and also would include like a domestic violence situation. So we did notice we also had a slight increase in our calls for domestic violence, up to 35 from 25 this last year. But what we did recently to address this is we partnered with CORA, which is Community Against Relationship Abuse, and many of their instructors came out to all of our patrol teams and trained all of our patrol staff with the latest resources and training on how to help assist victims of domestic violence. As far as crimes against property, we saw a slight drop in residential burglaries from 28 down to 26. However, there was an increase in commercial burglaries from 49 to 56, and I'll provide some updates on that later. So, Group A offenses under NIBRS are crimes cleared through arrest or exceptional means. In order for a case to be cleared by an arrest, an incident must meet the following conditions. Suspect has to be arrested, an arrestee is charged with the commission of the offense, or the arrestee is turned over to the court system for prosecution. For an offense to be cleared by an exceptional means, there are the following 4 categories must be met by this offense. You must clearly be able to identify the suspect. There must be probable cause to arrest the suspect. And then also his exact location must be identified so that he may be taken into custody. So if we had a warrant in the system but we didn't know exactly where he was, we wouldn't be able to clear that case. And then of course, if the offender, during the investigation, we find out he's deceased, or the victim at some time in the criminal process refuses prosecution. So on this clearance rate up here, we took a total of 1,976 reports, and those resulted in 683 arrests. Now, we have our clearance rate from last year, from 2022, at 78% for crimes against person, and then this, or in 2023, it was 67%. To give some comparison, the white bar graph is another agency or another city in this county that has a similar population of San Carlos, roughly 30,000, and it's about the same kind of layout and size-wise. So as you can see, their clearance rate for crimes against persons is only 38%. Our crime clearance rate for crimes against property is holding steady at 19, and you can compare that to the other agency was 8. And then our crimes against society remain very high at 97 or 99 last year or the year before, and then 99 last year, and compared to the other agency of 86. Now, the crimes against society, those clearance rates are so high is because those are like narcotic arrests or cases like that where you're actually already taking the person into custody because you on-view it. So that is why those clearance rates are so high. Okay. San Mateo County Public Safety and Communications is our dispatch, and they answer all of our calls, both 911 and non-emergency. We had a total of 11,992 emergency and non-emergency calls they took last year. Of those, we deemed 117 to be emergency calls, and an emergency call is a priority 1 call. That would require our response, like in a code 3 fashion, where someone's life or limb is in danger. And research has shown that if you can arrive on scene in under 5 minutes, the chance of making an arrest, if that is the type of scenario that it is up at 60%. But if you go over that 5-minute time period, it can drop down to 20. We also had a total number of non-emergency calls of 11,875. So I'm happy to say we're still well under that well-established 5-minute threshold. These are your community service officers. In San Carlos, community service officers, or CSOs, work alongside sworn personnel to ensure the Bureau operates smoothly with maximum efficiency. These non-sworn individuals handle calls for service that do not require the presence of an armed deputy, freeing up their colleagues to focus on other calls for service. CSOs also play an active role in the community, participating in events such as Hometown Days, Art and Wine Festival, Night of Holiday Lights. And in 2023, they also work closely with the Bureau to assist with such duties as conducting community outreach with the downtown businesses, investigating vandalism calls, enforcing traffic and parking ordinances, towing abandoned vehicles, and performing critical roles in taking reports from non-suspect reports, or they can take reports where there's no suspect info. And these are your CSOs right here. That's Javier Vasquez, Dan Souza, Kate DeHoney, and Dan Ortman. And they issued a total of 4,834 parking citations last year. They towed 17 abandoned vehicles. They took a total of 228 reports, and then also tagged for removal 439 vehicles, like for expired registration and whatnot. This is the city of San Carlos currently has 2 dedicated motorcycle traffic deputies who work full-time in a traffic enforcement, covering Monday through Friday. Over the course of 2023, these deputies have been involved in several important initiatives, including bicycle and pedestrian safety operations, sobriety checkpoints, and distracted driving operations. Additionally, they actively participate in community events by assisting with traffic and crowd control. And as a part of the major accident investigation team, they conduct thorough investigations into our major traffic accidents we have. Also, this last year, they had the honor of escorting esteemed dignitaries as well as the President of the United States during the APEC Summit. So Sergeant Cousins currently oversees our traffic unit with Deputies Larson and Deputy Grant. Deputy Grant just graduated from motor instructor school, so he'll be able to teach our newer deputies that are going to be motorcycle qualified. Deputy Larson and Deputy Grant also placed, I think, in the top 2 in the motorcycle competition that was put on by the San Francisco Police Department. And then 2 weeks ago, they placed the same spots in the San Joaquin County Sheriff's Office motor skills event. So very proud of the work they've done. And then also, we will be upgrading our Harley-Davidson motorcycles to BMWs in the next month or 2. So it'll probably get a little quieter around here. Traffic. San Carlos Traffic Enforcement is a collaborative effort among deputies, motor deputies, and the community service officers. The goal is to reduce traffic-related fatalities and injuries. This is achieved through a combination of education, engineering, and enforcement to address hazardous driving behaviors. The San Carlos Patrol Bureau is committed to ensuring the safety of all road users and continually focuses on areas with high traffic collisions. The following data for motor vehicle traffic collisions are used, and they are fatal, major injury, minor injury, and non-injury collisions. According to the data, there's been a minimal fluctuation in significant collisions within the last 4 years. Nevertheless, there's been a 24% decline in minor collisions and a 12% decrease in non-injury collisions from 2022 to 2023. Ensuring the road remains safe for all individuals is a continuous focus for the San Carlos Police Bureau. And the decline in the minor and non-injury collisions may be attributed to the latest enforcement initiatives in traffic collision-prone areas in San Carlos. Moving on to collision data. The City of San Carlos takes a comprehensive approach to traffic safety in partnership with the Sheriff's Office and other city staff. The approach includes 3 components: education, enforcement, and engineering. To ensure effective traffic enforcement, 2 full-time motorcycle deputies are assigned to San Carlos, working Monday through Friday. These deputies participate in the STEP, or Saturation Traffic Enforcement Program, on a rotating basis, allowing for a team of 4 to 5 or more motorcycle officers or deputies to conduct targeted traffic enforcement in the city of San Carlos. Additionally, the remaining 3 deputies per shift that are working on patrol will also assist with traffic enforcement when possible. We have various channels are available for the community members to voice their traffic concerns, including the online platform Akela, contacting or visiting our police bureau, or emailing us, and engaging with the deputy while in the field. We log these complaints, review them, and post them on our patrol board for complaint-driven traffic enforcement. An important development occurred in 2023 when a grand jury report was released highlighting the need for improved safety measures for bicyclists in the community. Responding proactively to this issue, the Sheriff's Office took the initiative to create a convenient online portal for cyclists to report any incidents with vehicles operating unlawfully. Additionally, the Sheriff's Office personnel were equipped with 3-foot rule violation guides outlining the appropriate procedures for handling and following up on these reports. So basically what people can do is they can go online if they felt the car got too close to them, and we found out a lot of bicyclists now have cameras and on their bikes, so they'll send us video or footage, and they can tell us where the violation occurred, and most of the time they have a license plate, and then what we'll do is we'll review that data, and then we can actually send a 3-foot warning letter to the registered owner of that vehicle. Not punishment or anything, nothing goes on the record. It's simply like, hey, on this day and this time, this cyclist felt you got a little too near him, and it does appear to be that you're in violation of the 3-foot rule. So that's something new that we started this last year. And I believe we had 7 reports so far this year in San Carlos. So. Flock safety and APL, I'm sorry, one more thing I wanted to go over for the traffic collision data. Twice a year we do sobriety checkpoints here in San Carlos. The 2 we had this last year, we screened a total of 1,945 vehicles. We did 40 FSTs or field sobriety tests on people. Those resulted in 3 DUI arrests as well as 66 other citations for various vehicle code violations such as suspended license or whatnot. And going on to flock safety now. So San Carlos has a network of 21 fixed ALPR cameras, which the city owns and contracts through Flock Safety. Thanks to the advanced camera network, we can now enhance vehicle recognition and quickly search for crime-related vehicles based on various characteristics such as make, model, color, type of license plate, and other distinctive features such as bumper stickers, decals, and roof racks. This feature will allow our Detective Bureau and allied agencies in searching for vehicles that may be involved in criminal activity and will provide real-time data regarding these vehicles' movements. So since the cameras went in, and I believe it was June of last year, we've had 14 links to significant investigations, and I'll just highlight 2 of them really quick right now. And these are both related to the commercial burglaries that we had. So in August 2023, a business on the 1000 block of Bing in San Carlos experienced a break-in which resulted in the theft of thousands of dollars worth of tools and electronic equipment. Flock cameras captured this vehicle, and the detectives were able to make a match on it. They were then able to track down the vehicle's owner, do surveillance on that, build their case. Ultimately, they were able to get an arrest warrant, which resulted in him being taken into custody. And then during that investigation, they found out that he was responsible for burglaries in Fremont, San Leandro, Hayward, and many other places. So that was all due to the Flock camera footage that we were able to identify that car. The other one's a little more interesting. Again, it was another commercial burglary. They were able to find out what type of vehicle was in the surveillance footage. They searched for that vehicle, and this commercial burglary occurred on Glen Way. But they found the vehicle in Flock, and the image that was obtained in the Flock video, you can actually see the stolen property is in the back of a pickup truck, because that was the vehicle they used. So the Flock camera actually helped us identify the vehicle and prove that the stolen items were in the car. So really great success stories that we've been having with Flock. The Investigations Bureau is comprised of a team of expertly trained and specialized personnel who use their extensive experience to conduct critical investigations into crimes that affect San Carlos. While only 2 detectives from the Bureau are assigned to San Carlos, it is important to note that they have full access to the whole entire Detective Bureau to investigate any crime. We referred a total of 539 cases to our Detective Bureau last year. We had several large ones. One was involving a fraud that was occurring at a local banking branch, where up to 5 individuals were working with one of the tellers to cash fraudulent checks. We also had our Home Depot robbery that involved a security officer discharging his firearm. And then we also had an embezzlement case, and that's what I'm going to highlight real quick here. In June of 2023, a business owner reported suspicious embezzlement by a former office manager. During the investigation, it was discovered that the suspect had been endorsing checks meant for the company to her personal bank account and altering bookkeeping entries to cover her tracks. Further investigation revealed that this possibly had been going on since 2018, costing over an estimated $700,000. The detectives presented their case to the judge, and a warrant was issued, and that subject was located in the North Bay. I believe it was Santa Rosa in December of 2023, and then we were able to take her into custody in March and bring her to custody here in San Mateo County. So great work by the detectives. Our property unit. Property unit is very important, as it is through them the chain of custody is maintained for all of our criminal cases. Unfortunately, they're always kind of working behind the scenes, so I just wanted to take a second to recognize them and give them credit. Jorge Ramirez in the middle there with the tie is our property unit manager, and his team consists of Lee Magalong, Javier Guzman, Wayne Bagley, Elizabeth Gomez, Tara Chavez, Grant Nguyen, Karen Franco, and Francisco Mendez. In San Carlos alone, we logged 1,181 pieces of digital evidence. That could be body camera footage or camera pictures. We processed 1,450 physical items. That included 18 firearms, 378 drug-related items, and 33 other firearms-related items. One of their big lifts they do twice a year is for our gun buyback. This last December, we hosted our San Carlos gun buyback, and in this case, we had a total of 223 firearms that were collected. This included 5 assault weapons and 2 ghost guns, and all those vehicles, all those firearms were processed for destruction. And in the 7 years that we've been doing the gun buyback, this unit has disposed of 2,623 firearms. So a lot of work when we do those things, but good payoff. Our PERT team. The Psychiatric Emergency Response Team, PERT, is a partnership between the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office and the San Mateo County Behavioral Health and Recovery Service System. When PERT was first established in 2015, it consisted of 1 Sheriff's Office detective and 1 clinician. In 2019, it expanded to include 2 detectives and 2 clinicians. Those are your clinicians right up there is Jessica Zamora and Rachel Lieberman. That's Cole Armando. He is since promoted, but Eric Rupel is still in the unit, and now James Saloma is our other PERT detective. So in 2023, PERT received a total of 151 total referrals for the city of San Carlos. 56 of those resulted in 5150 or 72-hour mental health holds where someone is gone, determined to be in mental crisis, and then we take them to see the doctor. 85 cases referred by deputies or command staff. 10 cases were referred to outside agencies, or actually people contacted PERT saying, hey, you came to see my family member a while ago, but they've degraded. I need you to come back out and get involved again. After investigating all referral cases, 85 of those referrals, or 56% were deemed to need follow-up and were assigned to PERT to handle that caseload. So just great work overall. They actually did, for the entire Sheriff's Office, they had 613 referrals last year. So they do great work in helping us deal with people that are having mental health crises. The school district. The San Carlos Patrol Bureau, San Carlos Police Bureau deputies and sergeants work closely with the school resource officers to establish a safe and supportive learning environment for our students, parents, and faculty. Our school resource officers play a crucial role in developing safety plans, engaging with students through meet and greets, and partnering with community-based organizations to provide education on crime prevention and drug safety. Furthermore, our SROs are responsible for investigating criminal activity, ensuring security and crowd control at school events, and conducting home visits when necessary. We continue to have a great relationship with the school district, and I'm in constant communication with the superintendent and Jennifer Gabourey, who is their chief operations officer. This graph here shows the number of calls for each of the schools. It does include if we're out there for traffic enforcement or other things, so it's just not those calls coming from the school. We had a big year this year too with the introduction of our canine therapy dog, Ben. So Ben and his handler, Deputy Martinez, visited the Arundel kindergarten class, I think 2 weeks ago, and I sent the council some pictures of it. So Ben is very busy. We're pleased to announce that we have 2 other dogs, therapy dogs, that will be coming online probably the end of the summer. We're going to have Maverick, who's going to be primarily assigned to the coast, and then Teddy, we're still trying to figure out where we're going to have Teddy assigned, but we will have 2 more therapy dogs with the Sheriff's Office, so real great program. Community engagement efforts. The Sheriff's Office prioritizes building and nurturing a strong connection with the community we serve. The Sheriff's Office has had a significant presence at major community events, and the following is a list of just a few of the events we attended here in 2023. We had Holiday Toy Drive, Hiller Aviation Kids Airfare, Coffee with the Chief, Eucalyptus lighting, Goblin Walk. We had Star Camp, Holiday Lights, Public Safety Fair, Special Olympics Torch Run, Shop with the Hero, Women's Buyback or Boot Camp, Art and Wine Fair, and the Gun Buyback. It's safe to say we're very busy here in San Carlos. And then I'd just like to highlight some of the Sheriff's Office initiatives and the initiatives that Sheriff Corpus started this last year. We had our crisis intervention training, as well as the enhanced crisis intervention training. We had coffee with the chief. We started a detox program at our main jail that mainly deals with people addicted to fentanyl. We had our first ever fireworks buyback program. We continue to work with the Women's Boot Camp, the CARE program, Project Guardian, the Special Olympic Torch Run, the Therapy Dog program that I just talked about, and our 30 by 30 pledge. And then it's an honor for us to provide law enforcement services here to the people of San Carlos. We're committed to always doing our best and continually strive to improve our efforts here. And then again, I just want to thank the city council, city manager, all the department heads, and everyone in the San Carlos community for all their support over the last 13 years. I appreciate it. And that concludes my presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Really appreciate that overview and all the data, and mostly all that you and your team does for San Carlos. So thank you for that. And I especially appreciated the overview of the shift change and just what experience and specialties these officers are all bringing to San Carlos. Very impressive. And this time we'll open it up to questions of my colleagues, and feel free to work in comments too if you would like to do that. Councilmember Collins?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Wow, I'm astounded by the detail. It's extremely helpful to understanding how you guys work and what you do. But my first question is, you have 4 teams. These are 4 new teams as of this month, based on seniority, I understand, and their preference. How many of them are on duty at any one time? Do they rotate like every 6 hours or what?
You will always have a sergeant and 3 deputies 24/7 here.
Okay.
Yeah, the 4 teams allow us to it allows us to basically run a 24 operation. 2 of them are day shift, and then 2 of them are night shift, and their schedules all kind of intermingle and overlap, so we get that 24-hour coverage.
Okay. I'm just wondering, and this may seem like a silly question, but it struck me with this new reporting system. And does this new system mean that you capture incidents that maybe weren't classifiable or even reported before? Or were they always there, but you didn't parse them the way you do now?
The crimes were always there and had been committed, and we would document them, but when we reported it up the chain, usually in the hierarchy, like I think last year I watched Chief Bell explain, like if you have a robbery, like if I take your purse and I rob you, but then I go to Hillsdale Mall and I charge 5 different things on credit cards at Lululemon and whatnot, we would just track the robbery. All the credit card fraud and whatever else you did isn't tracked. Now, with the new system, if you have that same scenario, let's say you get robbed in San Carlos and we come out and we take the report, and then as we're taking the report from you, you go, oh, hey, someone's using my Visa card at Lululemon or wherever at the Hillsdale Mall. We would still take that information and run with it and file it because we just don't, right? It's kind of, we're still trying to decide the proper way to do it, and this is statewide. So right now, when we would take this call, we would take your robbery investigation, but we would also take the credit card fraud information. So those are cases that didn't occur in our jurisdiction, but we're still taking the statistics for. We simply don't want to have a victim coming to us and say, hey, we're only taking this one part of the crime. You got to go here to handle the rest. So it's something we're still working out. And again, this is like the 2nd year or 3rd year where we've had this new system. So there's still a lot of, not to say kinks to be worked out, but a lot of policy and procedures that we still need to work out because we are reporting so many more elements of the crimes.
I'm also glad to see that the ALPR system is working so spectacularly well. I learned over the weekend that another city in our county apparently took them out, and now they regret it because they had a spike in crime. The other question I had was, I know that this new reporting system is obviously very much more detailed, and you mentioned that it's difficult sometimes to handle all that data and put all that data into the system. But do you think that with this new system that it's going to help you in the way you handle, the crimes and things that happen in town? Is it helping you, or is it sort of a lot of getting used to at the moment?
Right now, we're still kind of in I'd say the walk stage. There's still a lot of changes that come down the pipeline that then we have to train the deputies up on. I think overall, in the long run, it's going to give us a truer picture of actual crimes that are occurring in our jurisdictions. I just think we still have a little more streamlining to do of the whole process. And that, again, that's something that's statewide. It's just not here at the sheriff's office. It's all over.
Right. Okay. I have a couple more questions, but I'm going to wait. I know there's other questions, so thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Ron. Councilmember Venkatesh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Captain Myers, for that report. I can tell from the pictures you're so proud of your team, and it's a team feeling that I get from reading your report. And I didn't have a question, but I had a comment. I just wanted to say great job collaborating with Cora. And then my one question is why, you might not know, but why are the rates at Mariposa a bit higher? Is it traffic, I'm hoping?
I can't really answer that for you. I think the only problem was, hold on, is I believe we lumped 3 schools together, right?
Oh, Mariposa,
Yeah,
Terra
so
Linda.
that's unfortunate.
Okay.
And I looked it up in our dispatch system is we have those 3 schools with just the one address. So what I'm going to try and see if we can do is kind of subdivide it. So the dispatchers might have to take the extra step of going, what school are you calling from? And then we can basically have that breakdown for you next time.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then just for the public, I know what a 5150 is, but can you explain what a 5150 is for our residents?
I'm sorry, I apologize. A 5150 hold is a section of the Welfare and Institution Code that we use to put someone, basically get them help. If they're a danger to themselves, danger to the public, or danger to the others, a deputy sheriff and or one of our PERT clinicians can actually put this person on a hold, and traditionally we would take them up to county hospital where they can see a specialist and get the help they need. They can be held up to 72 hours, but nothing longer than that, and most of the times it's not that long.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Pranita. Councilmember Rack.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Captain Myers, thanks for the presentation, all the info. Had 2 questions. One, can you touch a little bit on the response times, just because they're up higher than they've been since ever, in this chart anyway. I know it's not a huge number, but obviously the trend isn't what we want to see. So can you talk a little bit about maybe some of the challenges around that, why that's happening?
It could be a multitude of things. Yeah, I said we were at 4 minutes and 7 seconds the year before. We did have a lot of new people in the Bureau, so that could be a reason why the times went up, just not familiar with the San Carlos. Trying to do our best to acclimate the people to the streets and everything like that, getting them out there. But I really don't have one answer for you as far as why the times went up maybe 15 seconds or so.
Okay. And then thank you for that. My follow-up is just, if you look either back at sort of this past year and then sort of looking forward for the next year, if you were to talk to your admin sergeant, to your officers and say, what would they say is working really well, and where would they say, gosh, we're going to need some help here, we've got some concerns moving forward, if at all, if that's the case. But
I actually can't think of any. We have the support the city gives us is great, and that's why, everyone, the spots in San Carlos filled up very quickly. So everyone appreciates the support that the Sheriff's Office gives us as well as the city. So I can't really think of anything that I can give you an example of right now.
Okay, and just on a follow-up on that, as you mentioned with the spots, is the process of what you did to change the teams here, is that just in San Carlos, or was that sort of countywide with the Sheriff's Department?
It was Sheriff's Office.
Got it. Okay.
And so they can bid to work in patrol, corrections, the jail, and we will do this every 6 months. We pretty much think that it's not going to drastically change. We chose 6 months because we are so big and we do have so many moving parts that if there's promotions or people going to specialties, then we want to be able to fill those positions and not have to run them with vacancies or overtime. So that way, doing it every 6 months allows us to keep them filled and replenished. But I think you're going to see it's going to be pretty stable.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Adam. Vice Mayor McDowell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Captain Myers, for your presentation. I want to start by commending you for all of your outreach to our community. I think you were very brave to join Nextdoor and post updates there. But I've been reading the comments, and they're all very positive. So everybody is really appreciative of you.
Pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
A lot of support in the community, and they really love seeing the great work that the deputies here in San Carlos do.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I think that the more that we can kind of let the public know about the great work that you're doing, I appreciated all the success stories that you highlighted. I know many of us up here like to repeat those out in the community when people kind of pine for the olden days of when we had our personal San Carlos force, and we can talk about all the great work that the Sheriff's Office provides and all of the amazing resources that you have at your disposal too to bring to San Carlos when we need them. So I commend you for that. I also really enjoy seeing our motorcycle deputies out around our school areas, keeping our intersections safe. I love seeing them write tickets to people who are blowing through our stop signs, so keep up that great work. And the photos of the new teams are really helpful. My question for you tonight, one of the things that I read and hear from the community is about retail theft. And I'm wondering if you could just talk a little bit, not only to us, but to the community watching at home tonight, how you work with, our retailers, the fact that some are cooperative, some not so much. How are you kind of working through retail theft in San Carlos?
Yes, of course. So we have a very good relationship with all the businesses here in San Carlos. Unfortunately, there's kind of two parts of this. You have the businesses that want prosecution when they have a shoplifter or whatnot, and then you have the stores that maybe from a higher level, it's the higher level policy of the organization of we don't want you calling if you're envying a theft. So that's kind of the struggle we're running into. There's two different types. We have like several businesses are very great, call us right away. Others will call us 2 days later and go, hey, this guy came in here and stole 10 jackets that cost $10,000, and we have a picture of them, but it's 2 days later. So what we've been doing is we're having our deputies go out, meet with all the loss prevention officers. Just, I think 3 weeks ago, we sat down with REI and had all the regional people there. And they'll tell us that it's more of it's not at the lower level, at the store manager, it's the policies from up high that are dictating how they operate. So we've been trying to have some high-level meetings with them to encourage them that we need to kind of work together as a team to combat retail theft, but in order to do that, we have to be called when the crime is actually occurring. So.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate that. I have a few questions, Captain Myers, but following that, if there are no further questions from my colleagues, we'll move on to public comment. So if you're online, now would be the time to raise your hand. And Chief, I was hoping you could just elaborate. I really appreciate all emphasizing the seniority of the team that all raised their hand and chose to come to San Carlos. And could you touched on it briefly, but could you elaborate a little bit on like why that is, what qualitatively attracted these senior deputies to San Carlos, and what does that mean for our provision of service here in town?
Again, I think a lot of it goes back to all of you, the support that you provide the deputies in the Sheriff's Office here. We have good facilities that are being updated and upgraded. They like the community really supports them. It's a great area to work. You kind of get a good mixture of everything too. So that's, have a great gym facility for them to work at. And so it's all the amenities that you guys provide here for us at the city. So.
Great. I'm glad that works. And then, I live up in the hills. I often get folks like Crestview and whatnot saying, boy, we just don't really enforce anything. But I appreciated the slide. It looks like we're issuing 11 tickets per day for traffic moving vehicle violations in town. So how would you address that? How do we, there's a lot more like miles of roads as you head west versus kind of our downtown core. And how do you think of allocating our resources of enforcement, and is that at all a concern how they're allocated to our west?
We kind of take a balance of the complaints we're receiving. We do receive a lot for Crestview, but traffic is one of the major complaints here in the city. And so we basically, Sergeant Cousins will get with the motorcycle deputies, and they'll kind of brainstorm and find out, where do they have, at what times in the day do they have the most speeding going up at Crestview or down on San Carlos Ave? So they kind of do a team building approach to it, talking with the patrol deputies to find out where they see a lot of the violations occurring, and then just responding in time, or to those locations. Unfortunately, there is only 2 of them, and they just can't be everywhere at once. But for speeding on Crestview, it's I believe I just got an email a couple, I think last week about it, and the same complaint. So we had them go up there and do speed enforcement as well as any kind of vehicle code violation enforcement. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And is that tracked at all? Like, is there like a heat map showing these citations, like where they get issued in town?
We have a heat map that we can, I don't know if we can generate. Yes, we do have a heat map that we can generate that will show where accidents occur, citations are issued, and crime reports are pulled.
Yeah, over time, I would personally appreciate seeing that kind of information where this takes place in town, I think is a useful perspective. Of course. And I really appreciate the slide and the emphasis on our PERT program. I just think kind of those additional tools and opportunities to de-escalate and solve issues in a more creative way are great. And we've, in the past, I've heard some anecdotes of incidents like that in town. Are there any recent examples of de-escalation in town that come to mind that might be worth highlighting? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but we've had such good ones in the past, and I really like, the community understanding what an emphasis the Sheriff's Department's been placing on that of late.
I'm drawing a blank.
Okay, so I wasn't trying to put you on the spot.
I apologize. There's no pressure for the undersheriff, but I know something happened in the last week. I just can't think of the details right now, and I will get right back to you on it, so I apologize.
No worries. It's a lot of data you were asked to present tonight.
They do go all over the county, too. So I know just earlier today, they were out on the coast dealing with some lady that was living in her car, trying to get her with life moves and the proper, proper assistance she needs. So they do work nonstop around the county, but then specifically here in San Carlos as well, too. But I will get a success story for you, and I'll get it to you tomorrow.
Okay. It's I know they're out there, so appreciate that.
My bad, I didn't have that on standby.
Not at all. And just finally, just a comment. I really appreciate all the new initiatives. It's just great seeing that you guys as a leadership team are always thinking of opportunities and ways to be creative. And I really like that 3-foot rural reporting tool. That might be something to highlight in our community newsletters at some point. Kind of get out like where that's at and what can be done. And it was nice learning more about our canine therapy dog. I actually wasn't familiar with that, so I look forward to bumping into Ben someday soon. So thank you. We do have further questions. Councilmember Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one comment and one question. And again, Chief, the work you guys have done is just incredible. I remember 15 years ago when we transitioned from our own police department to the Sheriff's Department, people sat in this room and thought that we were going to have disaster by going to the Sheriff's Department. And I don't think people realized, and I say this for public benefit, how vulnerable we were as a city then because of just the lack of coverage that we had. We had deputies coming and going because, the pay situation and everything. It was very difficult. And so, just as someone who's lived in this town for a long time, the coverage is better now. Everything is better. And I hope the public understands that things could have been so much worse, but there was these public perceptions that they were better than maybe they really were. But that leads to my question that, every year after 2009, we started, when we got our police services report, we had a running year-by-year bar chart of the, property crimes, personal crimes, and all that. And the impression that we always got was that crime levels, they didn't go up. They went down a little bit. Sometimes they went up a little bit, but they never went up. And if they went up insignificantly. But the question I have is that, in these statistics, you show 2020, 2021, 2022. Is the lack of the prior years, is that because of this new reporting system? It's hard to fit those old numbers into this new dynamic?
Yes,
And
it's just,
we'll see this going forward, expanding each year?
yeah, I just want to be a fair comparison, just because we're reporting so much more now and comparing it to the 8 under the old UCR, it wouldn't be fair.
Right.
You wouldn't get a true
Okay.
picture.
That was my impression. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ron. Councilmember Rack.
Thank you, Mayor Dugan. I remembered one other question. We had, and I guess when you talked about parking enforcement, I heard from a constituent just about on where we have the parking program in East San Carlos, that there were some concerns that there wasn't some enforcement there. They had some issues there. I just was see if you had any follow-up on that, or whether that sort of any sort of update on where that's been. Has there been more enforcement out in East San Carlos in terms of where we have the permit parking programs?
No, we did receive a complaint, and I immediately sent our CSOs out, and they weren't able to find, I forget if it was the permit just was not hanging from the thing, but it was on the dash. So that they went out there actually, and they didn't find a violation.
Got it.
So,
all right, thank you. That's helpful. I can report back to the individual as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Adam. And Mark, if you wouldn't mind standing by while we take public comment, might be helpful. Crystal, do we have any public comment in the room this evening?
I don't have anything in the room, and there are no hands on Zoom.
Okay, very good. We'd announced that, so seeing no further comment from my colleagues, thank you very much, Captain Myers. Appreciate the report.
thank you, everyone.
We'll move on to item 10 now, public hearing, and we are first going to consider updates to our user fee schedules.
Good
Thank you.
evening, Mayor and City Council. Rebecca Mendenhall, Administrative Services Director. So tonight's presentation is going to be given by Paul Harris. He's our Financial Services Manager. But once the presentation's concluded, if there's any questions, the department directors are here, I'm here, and Paul's here as well, that we can answer any questions you might have. So I'll turn it over to Paul.
Thank you, Rebecca. Appreciate that, and welcome, Paul.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council members. Paul Harris, Financial Services Manager. I'll be taking you through this presentation on the user fees and the development impact fee update for fiscal year 24-25. That's better. All right, to start off with some background, the city's user fees are reviewed annually and presented to Council for adoption. So the fees being presented to you for fiscal year 24-25 are based on a comprehensive fee study that the city went through in 2022, and that was led by a third-party governmental financial consultant. A fee study is usually performed every 3 to 5 years and takes about 3 to 6 months to complete, and it provides a full analysis of the cost to the city of providing services. The fee study gives the opportunity to review the full list of services provided, with a chance to make adjustments to existing fees, add new fees, or remove any fees that are no longer needed. It also allows a fresh review of the level of cost recovery and a chance to re-estimate service volumes to be used in subsequent user fee update analyses. So during the annual fee update, the City Council also elects by resolution to adjust future fees by the Bay Area Urban Wage Earners and Clerical Workers Consumer Price Index, or CPI, and for the fiscal year 24-25 fees, that's 2.9%. So in addition to the user fees, an annual update to the city's development impact fees is also brought to council at the same time. These fees are individually described in and governed by the city's municipal code, which also states the index by which the fees should be adjusted each year. So for the first 3 impact fees you see on the slide there, the park facility development fee, the traffic impact fee, and the childcare development impact fee, the index to be used is the Engineering News Record Construction Cost Index, which for the last year was 0.63%. For the sewer capacity charge, the last one on the slide, The index to be used is the Engineering News Record Construction Cost Index 20 city average, and that was 2.7% for the last year. For the childcare development impact fee, that went into effect in September 2022. So this is the first time that it's being adjusted by the construction cost index in accordance with the municipal code. So for the fire department services, they're contracted from the City of Redwood City. So fire-related fees are separate from the scope of the user fee study that we normally do. And Redwood City, they provide their own schedule of fire fees. So staff recommend as part of this item to adopt that fee schedule on the effective date as applicable. In addition to the CPI adjustment of the user fees, the annual review also gives staff the opportunity to review the fees to see if there are any changes that are needed. The following few slides detail these by department. So firstly, for Parks and Recreation, these fees are recommended on this slide and the next slide not to have any increase for fiscal year 24-25, and I'll run through them briefly. So the first three on the slide there, facility attendant fee, the janitorial services fee, the security guard fee for private rentals involving alcohol. These are pass-through costs and not recommended to have any increases for next year. For the cornhole game area, Chestnut picnic site fee, this was a new fee that was added last year to add the cornhole game area as a reservable space tied to a Chestnut picnic site reservation, and it's not recommended to increase this fee to help ensure affordability. The facility rental application fee, this is a fee to help ensure that a rental application is genuine, and $25 is determined to be the market rate and reasonable, and therefore an increase is not recommended. For the light use fields fee, this was analyzed as part of the 2022 comprehensive fee study, and it's a pass-through cost recovery for the service. And the current and recommended fee is $32 an hour. For the Sports League field use fee, this fee was also studied during the last fee study, and the City Council opted to phase the increase over 2 years to land at a rate of $86. And since it's been increased quite significantly over the last 2 years, staff are not recommending an increase for fiscal year 24-25. Continuing the Parks and Recreation recommendations. For special event and sports tournament permit request fees, these fees were evaluated in the 2022 fee study and increased significantly, so about 40% from previous years. And staff are proposing to keep them the same so they don't become cost prohibitive for community organizations to hold events. We've got the Snack Shack fee. That's a newly established fee following the study, and staff will continue to evaluate the staff time associated with this service and are recommending no change. And then finally, for the neighborhood block party permit, that's that fee is waived for up to 2 block parties per year per neighborhood block, and no change to that is the suggestion. Moving on to community development fees recommendations. So the protected tree fees. So last year, the protected tree removal section of the planning fee schedule was revised, with a number of the fees moved to a flat rate basis, according to the reason for removal. Depending on the complexity of application, additional arborist fees can also be applied at an hourly rate. And these fees represent 100% of the staff time and are listed there on the slide for you. The fee at the bottom, the beekeeping fee, that was a new fee introduced in fiscal year 23-24. Beekeeping in the city is governed by the municipal code, which requires a permit for related activities. The charge covers the staff time to issue the permit. And it's recommended to keep the fee unchanged for fiscal year 24-25, and as discussed at the March 25 council meeting, it's also recommended that an applicant receive a $100 rebate or reduction in the permit fee if they can prove that they've attended a beekeeping class. So for childcare centre related fees, in order to incentivise the childcare development within the city, staff are also recommending the waiving of a number of planning related use permit fees. that are listed on the slide here for you, and those are fees that could otherwise be applicable to such developments. For police services, the Visa Police Clearance Request Fee. This is a fee that was historically waived and started to be charged again in fiscal year 23-24. The San Mateo County Sheriff's Office resumed charging the fee effective July the 1st, 2023, so the city followed suit. The county intends to keep the fee at $11, so staff are recommending the same for next year. And then finally, we have the general plan surcharge fee. So this is a fee that's applied to all new construction and additions, and it is applied as a percentage of building project valuation. It's currently set at 1.15%. It offsets 50% of the staff and contractor costs related to updating the city's general plan. That's based on the last fee study numbers. And it's recommended to reduce this fee to 0.74% of building project valuation. And that's with a cap as well at $370,000 for project valuations of more than $50 million. And that recommendation really came about to reduce this fee because project valuations have increased significantly in the last couple of years since the fee study was done. And that fee study used valuations from the previous 3 years to develop the fee. So the valuations have increased a lot over the last 4 or 5 years. So if adopted, the fiscal year 24-25 fees will become effective on July the 1st, 2024, and that's following a minimum 60-day notice period, hence bringing this item to you this evening. And should these fees be adopted, then it would result in an approximate net revenue increase of $353,000 based on the estimated activity determined during the 2022 fee study. So that concludes my presentation. Myself and Rebecca are available for questions, and also we have some other departmental staff available if you have any questions about specific fees related to their departments. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate the report and all the work all the departments have put into this issue. We will first take council questions, and then following that, we'll take public comment, and then we'll move on to council comments and further discussion. Do any of my colleagues have any questions of the team? Councilmember Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just waiting to see if anybody else had any questions first. I really only have one question, and that is, what is a police clearance request fee?
So, excuse me, I believe it's for a letter from the police for that states how details of arrests for an individual and how much time they might have spent in county jail. And I believe it's a letter that is requested by certain government agencies for issuing visas. So that's my understanding of what the letter is for, and that's what the fee is charged.
I don't suppose you have any idea of how often that kind of a request is received?
I don't have any data on that.
I mean, it's kind of immaterial. I was just curious as to what actually the fee was. So, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Ron. Councilmember Rack.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the presentation, Paul. Can you ask, I know over previously we had looked at increasing the plan check fees and some of the plan review fees. And Rebecca may know because this may be from a couple of years ago, so I don't mean to. But we were going to make sure that we were raising it to our actual cost versus sort of, to me, we were subsidizing people who were, increasing their value and not doing that. Are we still on track to do that? Or do we feel like from the planning department that we are covering our costs now with those plan check fees and other building fees?
I believe we phased them in over a period of time, and so we should be where we should be right now. We should be at 100%.
Okay, thank you. It wasn't clear to me in the documentation how that was, so that's helpful. And then my next set of question is, obviously we had some public comment around for the Parks and Rec stuff, so I'd love to understand a little bit more of, we have a light fee, we have other, I mean, and if, how, have we heard that the fields aren't being used by this? Can we, what is the ability to look at some different options around this? I know we're going to do that potentially, or I would love to just get an understanding of field usage of that and our.
I don't know if that's.
It might be. I might be not germane. Greg may tell me I'm not germane on that.
I can talk about field fees.
So do we charge field fees if the lights are off? Do we charge light fees? The individual who spoke earlier said the lights were out, the field was reserved. Does that group still get charged a fee?
Sure. So let me go through kind of what our field use and light policy and procedures are. So an organization will submit their field requests for the season. We have main organizations, maybe it's 5 or 6, I'm off the top of my head, that pay that per player field use fee. If you recall, 2 years ago when we did the fee study, it was a huge jump, and so council directed staff to phase that over 2 years to get to that $86 mark that we just got to. In addition to their request for field time, if it extends into evening hours where lights are required, they need to submit an additional form for lights. So if an organization submits a form and says, on Tuesday, I need lights from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m., and we observe that maybe the field is vacated at 8 p.m., they are still on the hook to paying us for those 2 hours that they requested. Other cities permit their fields and charge for their field use in various ways. And what I was just having the conversation with last week was, do we look at possibly implementing balancing of per player field use fee, and then also considering an hourly field rental rate that would go hand in hand with an organization to make sure that the field times they're requesting is actually what is being used. And I'm happy to go into that further with you maybe at a different time of kind of understanding our field use policies and our procedures. It is complicated, and it is more than I think I can answer tonight.
Okay, can I just, and hopefully I'm not going to get in trouble with Greg here at this point. I think I've figured out how to do this. Do we audit field usage to know if when it's being reserved, if it's being used, and I'm trying to understand, like, how much revenue are we potentially losing by having sports leagues overbook, not use, and we're prohibiting then other usage. So to us, that's revenue loss of taxpayer dollars that we can do other things in this community.
From my understanding, the woman that spoke and the gentleman that spoke, I believe it's one club team. So that would be one club softball team could have 15 players. So 15 times 86 is potentially what we have not charged them that field use fee yet. That we potentially are losing out on. If we look at implementing an hourly field rental rate for these sports organizations, I could imagine that would generate a significant amount of additional funding. Also keep in mind, please, that the school district also charges our youth sport organizations for space for their school field space. So we're the one community that I'm aware of that an organization pays both the city and the school district for field space. And I want to always keep that in mind.
Right, but there was another team that was sort of a cricket league as well, so they might be handled differently on a per
That's like
usage.
A family and friend drop-in that we don't necessarily schedule out individual drop-in play, and that's been more on a friendly communication of, hey, this field is available, that field's available. Spring comes and our fields are usually impacted with Little League and softball getting going. So that's just been kind of an informal, this field's available, that field's available. Private field rental is included in our field policy under the different priority allocations. It is the last priority for a private San Carlos field rental. Private resident is like the 4th priority, and private non-resident would be the 5th priority. So that's like the last 2 priorities of our field allocations. The highest priority goes to city-sponsored programs, school district programs, youth sport organizations, and then the youth club teams.
Okay, that's helpful.
I'm also happy
Amy,
to send council the field use policy that you want to refresh on.
Sure, I would love to see it, and I mean, I think we can. I will raise it as agenda setting at another time. So, thank you.
Thank you. Adam, do any other colleagues have questions on our fees? Seeing none, I have a few questions on our impact fees. I mostly just want to understand when we apply things like, well, the various impact fees, they seem to relate to the use. So I know we've had some large fees assessed when, like a retail location goes from one use to another use, and whether that be a parking fee or what have you. And I'm just curious, when there's a change of use, we're not in all cases, these fees principally apply to new construction, not change of use, unless the use has different ratios or different fees, is what I'm trying to ask. Am I understanding that correctly?
I think I can speak to to a couple of the impact fees, like the sewer capacity charge and the traffic impact fee. So if there's a change of use, then and there is a credit given for the previous use, if you like. So for the sewer capacity charge, for the residential fee, if you've got a single-family home and you knock it down and build another single-family home, there's no additional fee. Because it's already been paid. And then it's the same for the non-residential commercial fee as well. If there's no increase no increase in square footage, then there's no additional fee.
Got it. So it's not even just change of use, even if it's a complete reconstruction, as long as you're replacing it with the same item, you get credit for the prior fees that have been paid previous.
Right.
Okay.
And I think there is a caveat in the traffic impact fee, for example, and I think they have slightly different rules depending on the fee. But the traffic impact fee, for example, I believe if a property remains vacant for more than 2 years, then it kind of cancels out the previous fee, and then you would have to pay the fee again.
Okay.
Right. So in some instances, you might have to pay the fee again, depending on the situation.
Does that apply to more than just the traffic impact fee? Is that a parking fee as well?
I don't know about the parking fee. I know it applies to the traffic impact fee. Don't know about the parking fee.
Okay.
So perhaps Andrea can
shed
a bit more light on
Yeah, I know
that.
there's a lot of flavors of these. I'm just, I have personally seen some kind of surprising fees add up on projects, and I'm always curious if they are being fully credited for what previously existed, and how do we actually track that in our system, if it just comes through the normal application process, or, just how is that done?
Sure, so I can speak to the parking and lieu fee, which I believe is what you're asking about. That's actually collected very rarely. It's on the books, but it's not really needed, especially now. And so what happens when an application comes in with a new use is we look at the previous use and how many parking spaces are required for that use. Not how many actually exist, but how many are required under our code. And then we look and see what the new use is and what the delta is between requirements. And as long as that's less than a 10% increase, then the new use can go in. The parking and lieu fee really only comes into play, one, if there's a parking assessment district created, and two, if the previous use was so low impact that the new use is a huge increase. So the two examples I can think of were a dry cleaner that went to a bar, so pretty low impact use to a bar. And then the other one, I believe, was a store to a restaurant. This has been in the last maybe 7 or 8 years. So it doesn't happen often. Most of the times businesses can either go in under the same parking requirements, or even if they can't, there's other options they have, like shared parking, distance to transit, things like that. So it's pretty rare that a fee is actually charged. Now, we also have AB 2097, which was recently enacted, which prohibits the city from enforcing parking requirements within a half mile of high-quality transit. So if you're looking at like the downtown, for example, unless there's a hotel or motel, the city cannot require any parking. So that impact fee is kind of a moot point for the most part.
Got it. And it's always been the case, if they actually build the parking, then there is no impact fee. Right?
Correct. And there actually has to be an assessment district set up
Okay.
to pay into.
Got it.
Yeah.
And that, the new state law that basically says we can no longer require parking, that applies to commercial as well as residential?
Correct.
Okay. So I guess the parking becomes theoretical. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that overview. And I guess my other question is, have we thought through, it looks like we're putting in an increase, not large, but an increase in our child care impact fee. And I know we're having a hard time even coming up with what we're going to do with that fee. So I'm kind of wondering why we'd be increasing it if we actually haven't identified how we're going to spend it yet.
I'll take that one. Thanks, though, Andrea. You're correct. We're still working with our subcommittee on formulating plans for expenditures. I believe to date we've collected the fee twice. Once. So we have got approximately $1 million set aside in that particular fund. How we would approach any sort of a user fee or an impact fee in a study like this, where we're looking at doing cost of living adjustments, the reason why we've included it in this is we don't have any additional direction from council, and your prior direction, which is to collect this fee. What we're doing with the user fees primarily is just making sure that that dollar that you're going to collect this year is worth as much to you as the dollar you collected last year. But with fees, particularly fees, impact fees like that for housing or for childcare or those kinds of things, we really do look to our policymakers to, provide some direction to us in terms of, whether or not they feel like those fees are making a difference. If you want to continue them, raise them, lower them, put them on a hiatus, those types of things. So I think, as we talked about pretty extensively during our mini retreat and our strategic planning retreat as well about this issue, we know that there's some work to do, and we've been having conversations with the council subcommittee on it.
Thank you, Jeff. That is helpful. Looks like Council Member Venkatesh has another question, and following that, if there are no further questions, we'll move on to public comment. So now would be the time to raise your hand if you have public comment online. Pranita.
Just a comment. Thank you for waiving the child care fees. I think that'll encourage more providers to come to San Carlos. And then my question is, the downtown employee parking program, is that something new or?
We've had the downtown parking program for a while. I don't know how many participants we have. I don't know if Public Works manages that, so do you? It's something we could pull together for you if you're interested.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh.
All right. Thank you, Pranita. And I just had one final question, probably for Andrea. I've heard from a couple of folks in various different construction scenarios where they felt kind of surprised by the fee at some point in our process, like maybe they'd already applied for their loan and now they got new fees to figure out. When do we calculate fees and kind of communicate that? And is there anything behind that perception? Like, do you feel like we communicate that relatively early in the process?
I believe so. We when they first come into planning, we definitely communicate the fees. They're all online for both planning and building. We also pull in building pretty early with planning projects, especially like new homes and larger. And so building will also be sure to let them know. I know the more significant fees are definitely the ones that come with the permit. So oftentimes developers or applicants will reach out to our building official, and he gives an estimate based on what they give them. Of course, it can change once the actual plans come in. But as far as I'm aware, everyone tries to be very proactive in what the fees are. I know on the plan, it's on all the planning applications. We let people know if it's a deposit and more might need to be taken in, or if it could be refunded in certain cases. So we definitely try to be proactive with that. But that's good feedback, and that's something we can definitely make sure that we're getting out.
Great, appreciate that. I see no further questions, so we will move on to public comment. Crystal, do we have any speaker cards in the room?
I have not received any speaker cards, but if you'd like to address the council, now would be the time. Okay, and there are no hands on Zoom.
If we have one in the room, you can speak now, but afterwards, if you can fill out the speaker card and turn it in, that's our usual procedures, but feel free. Yep, and we take 2-minute comments, and welcome.
Hi.
And if you could just state your name, please.
Yes, sir. My name is Nathan Conti. I'm a local resident and a small business owner here in San Carlos. I was here just to really enjoy. This is a new process for me. I've never been involved in this sort of environment, and I really enjoy it. I really appreciate everything you guys do. Not to eat into my time, but just want to say thank you, especially as a born and raised here. I was just curious about the parking. When you said parking was theoretical for small businesses in regards to like space usage, things like that, and requirements for parking for space use and things like that. Right now we're trying to figure out what like a parklet kind of for our business. And the issue that we're having seems to be saving the parking, as well as maybe that the parking might not be safe for cars driving by or parking or things like that. So I just wanted to try and figure out and maybe bring to the attention of the council. Hopefully we can find some middle ground on what that looks like, or clarification, things like that. That's all.
All right, thank you, Nathan. Appreciate that. And by theoretical parking, I was referring to we've been usurped by the state. We can no longer require parking in projects, so that has rendered our parking in lieu fee a bit theoretical at this point. So that's what I meant by that. And I appreciate the Groovy Goose in town. It looks pretty active in the mornings, so I'm glad to see that. And I have enjoyed more than one Cafe Affogato there, so thank you. And no further public comment in the room. Do we have any hands up online?
No, there are no hands.
No hands up online. So given that, I would entertain a motion to close public hearing.
I'll move we close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor McDowell? Yes. Councilmember Collins?
Yes.
Councilmember Venkatesh?
Yes.
Councilmember Rack?
Yes.
And Mayor Dugan?
Yes. So public comment is closed. We will now move on to comments about our fee schedule. Councilmember Rack.
Not mean to have that up there. I don't have any comments.
All right. Does anyone else have comments on our fee schedule? Seeing none, I will just briefly say I appreciate all the work that goes into a report like that and all the deep thinking required. I do like that the roll-up resulted in a average net fee of a 2.9% increase, which I think is below inflation, and that should just be noted. I particularly liked there were no park and rec use fee increases. I think we want people using our park, so that was great. Field use fee, we got some public comment on that. I appreciated Councilmember Rack's thoughts there, and Amy's thoughts as well, and maybe some hybrid of a per player and hourly fee makes sense, but we have time to think through that. Obviously not in this cycle. And then that general, there's always a perception our fees go up and up, but, I think it's worth noticing that our general plan surcharge fee, we looked at it, it's too high, and we're reducing it by 35% tonight. So that's worth noting. Those are my comments. Seeing no other comments, I would entertain a motion for approval.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt Resolution 2024-45, a resolution of the City Council of the City of San Carlos authorizing adjustments to the cost of services schedule, user fees, park facility development fee, sewer capacity charge, child care development impact fee, and traffic impact fee for fiscal year 2024-2025.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Rack?
Yes.
Vice Mayor McDowell?
Yes.
Councilmember Collins?
Yes.
Councilmember Venkatesh?
Yes.
And Mayor Dugan.
Yes. And with that, our new fee schedule is approved. And that might not be the most fun topic, but so now we get to move on to a fun topic, new business, considering the recommendations of our City Centennial Advisory Committee.
Mr. Mayor, can we take a 5
Oh. That's a good, let's do that. Let's go ahead and break for 5 minutes. We'll come back at, let's say 9:05. So we're in recess. We'll go ahead and put ourselves back in order here and move on to new business 11A, which is considering recommendations of our City Centennial Advisory Committee. Looks like we have a report from our Park and Rec Director, Amy.
Good evening, Mayor Dugan, Vice Mayor McDowell, council members and community. My name is Amy Newby, Parks and Recreation Director. So tonight I am going to go through all of the work the City Centennial Advisory Committee has done in the last few months. So just a little bit of background for those that are unaware. The city of San Carlos will be celebrating its centennial in 2025. And so to prepare for the celebrations, council approved funding totaling $1 million in the CIP budget starting this fiscal year. And the funding will support the various programs, events, and other related costs for all the festivities for the centennial. The advisory committee was formed in late 2023. It consisted of members of the community we had 2 council members, we had commissioners, city committee members, San Carlos community organization members, and business owners, and also representatives from the school district. This was strictly a volunteer role, and the requirement was that the committee members must either live or work in San Carlos. It included 22 primary seats and 7 alternate seats to fill the roles. And we hosted meetings in January, February, March, and April of this year. Topics of the meetings included reviewing the purpose, expectation, and goals of the committee members. At the first meeting, our city clerk, Crystal Moy, was there to swear all of the new committee members into their oath of office. We held an initial brainstorming session where we gave every primary and alternate committee member the opportunity to share what is their top idea and suggestion for the centennial. And it was a great kind of just early exercise to get all of our minds thinking of how great this centennial can be, and ideas ranged from the big events to the history to how can individuals and neighbors celebrate together. So in the following meeting, we cultivated a list of more brainstormed ideas, and then we categorized them because it really started to feel like there's so many ideas. How do we organize them? So we came upon 5 separate categories: the big event, the history of San Carlos, branding and merchandise, Centennial and the arts, and the 100s. And I believe it was included in the addition to the packet of the long list of over 100 ideas that were shared throughout this committee. Other topics included the discussion of the city and centennial logos. We had our communications manager, Brian Carey, join us for 2 meetings, and he got to speak about our ideas for the centennial logo, which is what you'll be seeing later this evening, how we can incorporate the centennial into the Good Living logo, into our city seal, and also a unique individual centennial logo. We also reviewed our communication strategies as a city, and how we typically communicate to the community, and requested what are other ways that we should be posting these centennial events and programs so that we make sure everyone that wants to know about what's going on hears what's going on. So the recommendations for you this evening, one of the first things we wanted to narrow down was the date of this centennial community event. The committee voted 14-7, recommending the event be held in conjunction with Hometown Days in 2025. Staff believes this is a good, efficient use of our resources, but also an event that is so ingrained in the community. If we want the most participation from our community, that this is the weekend that would be great to have it. The second recommendation is kind of, I guess that you could think of it San Carlos history, but in the future, is that the committee voted 19-2 to recommend that City Council consider naming the 700 block of Laurel Street as Centennial Plaza, as Council is planning this redevelopment of the downtown. The third topic that we discussed was San Carlos history projects. And so we decided on narrowing it down to the top 3 projects that committee members voted on. So first was to contract and partner with StoryCorps, and I'll read a bit about what that would be. So StoryCorps is, the partnership goal would be to produce an audio-visual keepsake for long-term display that will commemorate the history of San Carlos with personal stories from community members. StoryCorps will facilitate, record, edit, and design these videos for the city to share during the centennial. So the goal of this project would be to get them on board as soon as possible to start facilitating these conversations in the community at our events, possibly Hometown Days, if not Art and Wine Fair, Night of Holiday Lights, if we bring them on to the farmers market, where it's bringing community members together, engaging them in a conversation, in a facilitated conversation, to just get a better understanding for the San Carlos history and residents and how everyone came to be here. The second one is a map of San Carlos historical markers. So this would be an identifiable sign that we can look to identify a certain number of historical spots in San Carlos. If it's the old movie theater, if it's, I'm kind of blanking on some of the spots, but just to identify all these different places in San Carlos, and it would be a visual sign that would be installed at this location, these locations, either temporary or we could consider it permanent. And then last is an oral update to the book San Carlos Stories, an oral history for the city of Good Living. Linda Garvey is the author of this book, and she has offered and volunteered to do an oral update to the book up until today, and so I think it would be 1975 to 2025. And then the logos. So you have 3 different logos to consider tonight. As you can see, the Good Living logo has 2 different iterations, just because this is the standard format of how the City of Good Living logo appears. We have that dark background, or we have then the transparent background. And as you can see in the Good Living logo, it includes, the bottom portion would be the update to the logo, the 100 years and 1925 to 2025. The Good Living logo is used on a lot of our city communications. It's used as a more informal logo that we include on some of our event marketing. And then moving on to the city seal, as you can see, it as well includes the years 1925 and 2025 with the 100 years on the bottom. Feels very similar to our current city seal. If you recall, California is where the 100 years is, and then it would be just adding that black space for the years. The city seal is used on all of our official and formal communications as a city, so any staff reports, memos, letters, that is where the city seal would be used. The Good Living logo and the city seal are both city logos, and then, so just to consider that, and then moving on to the Centennial logo, this would be a Centennial community logo. So if there are other events or programs that an organization outside of the city wanted to do to celebrate the centennial, they would be free to use this logo. And a few points I want to make. The logo that was included in the committee recommendation last week did not include the word centennial at the bottom. And so the morning after the meeting, staff reflected and realized that none of the logos that the committee approved had the word centennial. And specifically looking at this centennial logo, if it's to be shared amongst the community in all centennial celebrations, staff feels and recommends that it should have that centennial identification and include that word at the bottom. So that's for council to consider tonight, is adding the word centennial to the bottom. You also can recommend the centennial logo that the committee approved last week. I have that graphic in a later slide if you wanted to look at it. So next steps following council's actions tonight. So the committee has fulfilled its duties in a formal manner and capacity, so we will disband the formal committee. However, Staff will begin prioritizing and planning some of the events and programs. Our top two we see is to initiate the contract with StoryCorps and to discuss the next steps for the update to San Carlos Stories, as we feel those are a few things that we would want to launch in the new year, in addition to some of the branding. So with the disband of the formal committee, staff still is going to take all of those community members and anyone additional in the community that wants to volunteer, and identify what are some events and what are some programs that we're doing where we need this volunteer assistance, and get them involved in a more volunteer role. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Terrific. Thank you, Amy, and appreciate all you and your staff did to get this process going. I was, along with Sarah, participated, and it was a well-run process. And somehow this committee of 40 actually got to some pretty good decisions, I think. So thank you for that. We'll move on. Let's go ahead and combine our questions and comments, and we can probably get through this one pretty quickly. Councilmember Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Amy. Great presentation. Having a group of 40 people work together has got to be quite some chore. I don't envy you. Especially the people we have are all, longtime residents and, very involved. I really have one question so far, and that is regarding the logos. I'm a little confused. We have 4 logos. Are we picking one, all of them? They'll be used for various places.
Yes, let me clarify that a little bit. You'll be approving all of them, so they all are used in different capacities. The logos for Good Living and the city seal will just be used for the year 2025. So we anticipate updating all of our letterhead. Anywhere the city seal is, we'll update for 2025 with this logo, and similar with the Good Living logo. City seal, Good Living logo. And then January 1st, 2026, those logos go away. We go back to our original city seal and Good Living logo. The Centennial logo will kind of live on forever in all of the things we do in the year 2025. We do anticipate doing some merchandise. We haven't worked out the logistics of the merchandise yet. It would be good to note that if it is the city that might be selling this merchandise, we will have to pay, oh, Rebecca's not here. We would have to pay sales tax on that, which is something that we haven't typically done. So we might look to a nonprofit community organization to maybe take on that, who is a partner with us if they would want to. But yes, you're voting on all 4.
Good, because I like them all, so I wouldn't be able to make a decision, so thank you.
Yeah, they all have different uses, so we'll have good use of all of them. Thank you, Ron. Councilmember Rack.
Thank you, Mayor Dugan. Thank you, Amy, and thanks to the committee for all the good work and your staff for doing all that. I had a couple. The difference on the Centennial logo is just the word Centennial versus what was there before. Is that right?
There may have been a copy and paste error in the graphic that was presented to you prior to the meeting with the palm trees. But it was intended to have the full palm trees. But yes, the Centennial word at the bottom is the only change to the committee-approved logo or committee-recommended logo.
Okay, got it. I think the logos are all good. I like the Centennial logo. I struggle a little bit because I feel like palm trees doesn't feel like Northern California. I know that's what's there at the train station, but I feel like we have this symbol of like an oak tree for our city, and then we're putting palm trees in. So I get it. It's just, I struggled a little bit with that, looking at that, because I kind of feel it doesn't totally represent what our community is from that end. So, yeah, it's fine. I'm good. It's fine. That's my little nit on that. On the history of San Carlos, I love the StoryCorps idea. I think it's great. I'm be curious just as we think through some of these things, how much we can digitize and, make more interactive for people with some of the history markers and the walk and, doing things like that to help people can be more interactive and kind of walk around with, if there's ways to do QR codes and other things. And I know that I'm going to pull Greg in on this because I've talked to him about this at one point, that like where we have sidewalks, because we own the sidewalks, we could put a disc in the sidewalk that's a permanent disc that's part of a 100th anniversary marker. So we could do that and create a history walk with QR codes, and that people can do that and walk around. And those are, since the city, we don't, it doesn't have to, residents don't have to do anything. It's just part of what we own the sidewalks. We can do that and help create that history walk as well. So it's just something that I know Greg and I have talked about at one point, just because I'm just a fan of history, and I'd love to celebrate that. So just a thought on that. I know you're this is just sort of the big picture things, but just I think as we do that. And then, I think, so do you, other than that, I think it's all great. I think you guys did great work and really appreciate it and look forward to the year of celebration.
And you just said it, but I was going to note that these are the big picture,
Right,
and then
more
the details.
Right,
yes.
there's more that's
we
going
do
to happen
plan to
between,
have
right.
it all digitalized, online, available, QR codes where it is easily accessible in all ways for the community.
I think it's great to incorporate how we pull things with the History Museum, what we can do at City Hall, other city properties to do things, to celebrate things. So I think it's a great idea. So thank you. Thanks to everyone.
Thank you, Adam. Vice Mayor McDowell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was a real pleasure to serve on the Centennial Committee. I should have said this at our last meeting, but I don't know if John feels the same way, but it was really touching to sit there and look around the room at all of the people who are on that committee who have been so involved in San Carlos. And I thought, wow, I don't know if we're ever, all 40 of us, going to sit down at a table again and brainstorm things for our community, right? It was a really special experience, and I think that we did a good job choosing the people. Everybody was very collaborative, and there was no infighting or anything. It was just a really lovely experience, and so I just wanted to thank you all and staff, and also all the volunteers on the committee, because it was special. I had one question about the brainstorming ideas that was in the supplemental material, and I just wanted to kind of clarify for myself and for the community. Once these subcommittees are established for different planning subgroups, will they go back to this brainstorming idea and kind of look at some of the things that were raised and think, oh yeah, well maybe now we can fit that into our whatever, our parade or our hometown days. Okay, so that
is our intent, our goal of all those ideas that were generated doesn't just get tossed. Like, that's our building block for hometown days. What can we add to hometown days in 2025? Right. For some of the history stuff, or just like the smaller community organization celebrations, and how can we, I am blanking on your name, sir, but remind me of your name.
Nathan.
Nathan attended the meeting last week, and we discussed how to get the businesses to participate. And while we can't force a business to participate, we're going to put out some communications with the logo of like, hey, we're celebrating our centennial year. If you want to buy into this and celebrate this as a community business with us, here are some ideas that were generated. And there were some for restaurants, and I think there were maybe some other ideas for other businesses, but, and then kind of leave it to San Carlos businesses if they want to participate, but send out that communication of these ideas that were generated. There was a lot of ideas how to incorporate it into the schools, and so we're going to continue to have those conversations with the school district and how they can bring some of the, like the oral update to the San Carlos history book. It will be digital. Like, how can they incorporate that into school assemblies? What can teachers do? So yes, those ideas are not going away.
Yeah. Okay. Super. Because there were a lot of good ones. So it was a lot of brainstorming. So I hope that we can continue to kind of use that as a living document and plug those ideas in where they fit.
Definitely.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Terrific. Thank you, Sarah. Seeing no other questions or comments, I have a few. Yeah, it was, well, first I'll just share, I totally agree with what Sarah said. It really was an amazing group. We just really did assemble the most of the longest-term contributors to our community, and just to, we had Citizens of the Year in there from decades ago, so it was amazing. And I remember looking around the room. We actually, Crystal swore them all in on our first meeting, and you could just tell they all stood up with great pride, getting sworn into something officially in San Carlos, and very well deserved for them. And they've served us well yet again, because these are all great recommendations that came out. I'll just share on the hometown days. I went into that meeting. I think that was our second meeting, and I was thinking we'd want this to be a standalone thing, and I was swayed just by these are the folks that have really put together our events over the years, and just hearing their perspective, and putting it with our hometown days basically just means it's a guaranteed success. We already know our community loves that weekend. They're already going to be focused. It's a good time in the school year or whatnot, and it basically means it's going to be great. So, our challenge will be to just make it the Centennial to stand out above and beyond everything else we're doing. So I think I heard a couple people resonate with Centennial Town Days for one year only, which maybe that might be a way to brand that Hometown Days and make it seem a little different. The historical marker idea, I just noticed, I think as you stated it here, you said map of, and I'm glad to hear we're talking about markers and really a robust kind of program. I know the history museums have been talking about markers, and there was even discussion of how to make them. I think I heard like a wood shop involved, but I got to admit I like Adam's idea of brass plaques in the sidewalk a lot. I love like anything that can stand the test of time, I love those ideas, so thank you for that, Adam. And then on the logo, I'm so happy to see the Centennial added, because I loved this logo. I loved the kind of California sunset aura about it. But I almost voted for, I did vote for this one. I almost voted for the other one because it said Centennial.
Yes.
So I'm actually really happy to see Centennial on this, so thank you for that. And I will say there was some discussion, because we were only asked to kind of vote between this and that logo. We weren't asked to redesign them on the spot. But several people were wondering about those staircase railings in front. And, I got to admit, I don't think they add much, and they kind of make me wonder where the heck those things are going. So,
They're actually there if you go to that back end of the train depot.
Okay, yeah. So anyway, I would support removing those. I don't know if anyone else has an opinion, but it's not a huge deal either way. But I guess maybe it suggests you have to keep moving to get to the tracks or something like that. But anyway, but I love that it says Centennial on it. So anyway, great. This is so fun. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Seeing no other comment, I guess we will move to see if there's public comment on this item. If you would like to comment online, now would be the time to raise your hand on Zoom. Crystal, do we have any public comment in the room this evening?
I have not received any speaker slips for this item.
Okay. Then we'll pause for just a few seconds. Please do raise your hand online if you would like to public comment via Zoom.
Not seeing any movement on Zoom.
Thank you, Crystal. With that being the case, I would entertain a motion to approve the recommendations of our City Centennial Committee.
I can do that. I move to adopt Resolution 2024-46, a resolution of the City Council of the City of San Carlos approving the recommendations of the City Centennial Advisory Committee.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I just want to make one comment before we vote. While I hold palm trees in the same regard as I hold eucalyptus trees, I don't mind them in this logo because they're already there. So that was all.
And we do have a diversity of trees in town, so we can celebrate many of them. Terrific. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Venkatesh?
Yes.
Councilmember Rack?
Yes.
Vice Mayor McDowell? Yes. Councilmember Collins?
Yes.
And Mayor Dugan?
Yes. Terrific. Yep, thank you, Amy, and glad we're moving forward in such a good direction on such an important celebration for San Carlos. So we can now move on to item 11B, which is considering adopting our traffic signal master plan and authorizing Public Works to update and approve amendments to the master plan as needed for that adoption. Looks like we have a presentation from Hania. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Dugan, council members. I am Hania Hushmandi. I am the Senior Traffic Engineer with our Public Works Department. As most of you probably already know, we have been working on a citywide traffic signal master plan for over a year now. The effort is coming to conclusion, and we're very excited to present to you the final product that will update our entire traffic signal system in the coming years. With that, I would like to introduce Ryan Doe from Kimley Horn, who is our consultant who's been helping us with this effort.
All right, good evening, everyone. Good evening, council members. And thank you for this opportunity to present the traffic signal system analyst project. It's a mouthful, but the resulting plan, the master plan, is ultimately what we're going to be talking about tonight. Ryan Dole, I'm with Kimley Horn. I'm a traffic engineer, and I've been supporting the city as the consultant project manager throughout this process. So, the statement shown here on the screen represents the vision statement, or the primary objective of the traffic signal master plan. When the city set out to do this traffic signal system analyst project, the staff conveyed concerns about the consistency in deployments and a need for guidance documents that could be utilized for the rollout of CIP projects and development projects. In collaboration with city staff and stakeholders, this master plan aims to present an approach for improving the city's transportation network and address its traffic needs. This is accomplished by inventorying the entire system, visiting all the different traffic signals to record the components, determining improvements and upgrade opportunities, including detection, communication, signal equipment replacements, etc. And lastly, it focused on building upon previous installations by the city, as well as CCAG smart corridors. The benefits that the traffic signal master plan will provide will be realized through the identified implementation strategies and projects. These include developing standard technical specifications that guide both cities and the city staff and developers to ensure consistent infrastructure throughout the city. It also includes positioning the city for the use of existing and new traffic management tools and technologies. It will be creating the infrastructure and processes for better traffic management at boundaries with Caltrans and adjacent cities. These boundaries tend to be some of the key congestion points and concerns for residents throughout the city moving to and from. So this system and this future system will provide the tools to better management and provide cross-jurisdictional operations. This master plan also establishes budgets and planning for CIP projects, as well as particularly looking forward to maintenance of this new system. Overall, the traffic signal system will be a tool for staff, the engineers, as well as other factions of the city to improve traffic operations for all users, including pedestrians, bicyclists, and transit. This is a flow chart showing the overall process that we followed to develop this master plan. As I mentioned a couple slides ago, this started with a field inventory. Our team opened up all the cabinets, visited all the intersections, took a detailed inventory and created a very robust one that's actually included as an attachment to the master plan. This inventory was then compared to the goals and objectives that were identified in collaboration with city staff and the stakeholders. Through comparing those two, we identified needs and gaps, and then the needs and gaps were used to identify implementation strategies and projects. The implementation strategies and solutions presented in the plan are really focused on problems and constraints that are limiting mobility throughout the city, as well as overall system performance. The master plan really focuses on the needs. While there are a lot of fun and exciting technologies coming through the market and into use, we want to make sure that this is a need-based process. We want to make sure these are usable to you. We've all bought that shiny new electronic toy that gets a little bit of use and then kind of falls to the wayside. We want to make sure that your investments are effective and efficient, and that's why a needs-based assessment is very important. This master plan culminates in a list of project opportunities that implement communications, like fiber and copper communications to each of the signals, also wireless. It includes upgrades to traffic signal controller hardware and firmware, traffic monitoring systems, traveler information components, central control, and then also just a number of other. It also positions the city for future implementation as new technologies come online, like connected or autonomous vehicles. So the goals identified and shown out here on the screen were developed by the city stakeholders, and these overarching goals are broad statements. They summarize the overall priorities for the city and ultimately try to expand upon the vision statement that was shown earlier. In the master plan, the goals are broken down into objectives. The objectives are more specific and measurable, so peruse the master plan for those. But ultimately, those objectives are what will be used to measure those technologies and the implementation strategies that are going to be put forward. We tried to build in some flexibility of those, again, to adapt with the ever-emerging technologies that come online, and hopefully provide the flexibility to staff to evaluate them as they come. So for the existing conditions, I did say we did open up all the cabinets. We took an inventory of the record drawings and partnered with city public works staff and maintenance, and opened all the cabinets. Overall, the city has 33 signals located, well, 33 signals are located in the city. 24 of those are owned and operated by the city. 9 of them are owned and operated by Caltrans. Some of the observations from the signal inventory included that there's a variety of, there are different makes and models of cabinets, controllers, and ultimately just some, that causes some disparity on how you approach maintenance and operations for those, and sometimes makes it a little bit harder to replace them. The city has been progressing through upgrades with pedestrian vehicle signals, push buttons. The city has replaced all the LED lights, so there has been a lot of progress, but there's still some efforts to go. As shown on the graphic and the screen, there are existing communications represented by the kind of the orange line as well as the yellow highlight. The orange line represents fiber communications. Those were installed by the CCAG Smart Corridors project, which wrapped up about 10 years ago. As part of that, those signals were identified as part of the instant routes for US 101. The one line that goes down towards City Hall provides a connection to that smart corridor system for the city. The implementation strategies that were identified were separated into near-term, mid-term, and long-term kind of strategies. There are opportunities to move from one to the other, but this is kind of our roadmap for trying to help guide which projects will be a priority first versus more of a long-term opportunity. For example, controllers could be paired, controller projects in the near term could be paired with some of the communication projects in the long term if a funding comes available and there's some efficiency to do them at the same time. The phasing recommendations considered 4 factors. One was kind of ease deployment. So quick build or quick deployment projects were prioritized for phase 1. These are projects that include more like signal timing or simpler replacement projects, like signal head upgrades. These don't require substantial project development or infrastructure needs, and so they can be put out there really quickly. Staffing capacity was considered from the standpoint of being able to deploy, administer, and both design and construction. So that was factored into when projects would take place. For projects more in the midterm and long term, those are projects that might require a little bit more planning, design, and potentially bid processes. So those will require a little bit more lead time. So those were factored into mid or long. And lastly, sequencing and project dependency. Some of the projects require other ones to lead, to go first. For example, we recommend a staffing plan to be taking place in the midterm, and that really is to lay the groundwork for the deployment of more improvements later on, because if you don't have the staff plan or the funding and operations lined up, you shouldn't deploy the projects because otherwise they would be left unattended. So the project phasing, this is just a summary of all the projects that we have identified relating to the strategies. Overall, the total recommendations come to just over about 8.5 million in improvements. We did gather input from staff through these recommendations, and we did gather other input from stakeholders, and there has been actually some shifting around between projects that were originally identified in like phase 3 or phase 2 based on input, and were moved up in earlier stages. So that has been accounted. So if you're comparing the strategies versus the projects, there may not be some alignment, but that honestly was because of the input received from stakeholders. So this is an overview of what the future conditions will look like and what the system will be in at the culmination of all the improvements that were recommended. The ultimate project or ultimate layout will include communications and traffic signal upgrades at all the intersections. Some of the intersections that are still a little bit remote will rely upon wireless technologies. We have proposed to include hardwired connections where feasible or cost effective. But ultimately, the real focus is trying to upgrade the systems to better utilize and really leverage the groundwork set by the CCAG system. It is intended for this master plan and the improvements to be a living document, and so it is recommended every 5 years to reassess what the priorities are, what the city's priorities are, what your biggest needs are at that time, and hopefully revamp and readjust as needed. Also, at this time, you can reassess your needs based on what new technologies are available, and if they would better fit the needs and maybe replace some of the ones that are recommended here. So with that, I know everybody loves nerding out at traffic engineering at 9 o'clock at night, so very open to questions and discussion.
Terrific. Thank you. I appreciate the good overview of this program. It's obviously a priority of mine and a priority of the city as we continue to grow. Having our city work well as we do so, I think, is very important. Do my colleagues have any questions or comments on this item? Councilmember Rack.
Thank you, Mayor Dugan. Yep, all right. Thanks for the presentation and all the work that went into this. This is great. Just 2 questions. One is sort of with the sort of future conditions. Obviously, it's sort of flexible and adaptable. So, but if we are looking at some point, you've got some operating on wireless, things may change. Is there any sort of cost calculation to what that might look like if we ultimately we're going to put fiber in to those areas? Is it just sort of going to be, well, AT&T or somebody else's fiber going, or does it operate separately that we'd have to install our own? How does that process work?
The typical recommendation is to install your own, so you're dedicated for a couple of different purposes. You can partner with an outside agency and lease. Many agencies do that. Many agencies do prefer to do their own just from the standpoint of autonomy. Also, there is sometimes a security component that you can have it fully separated, and so this is isolated and generally not accessible by internet, and therefore not accessible for like cybersecurity concerns. So from the standpoint of, yes, you could do fiber instead of some of the wireless, but fiber and undergrounding is always very expensive, sometimes $500,000 to $750,000 per mile. And so in some of these cases, when it's just more cost effective for that lone signal.
Got it. And I sort of want to just piggyback on your sort of secure access and the cybersecurity around that. I mean, is the wireless, how does those wireless systems then work versus I get the fiber is a closed network, and that, is the wireless also part of that closed network, or how does that, I mean, obviously if it's wireless, it has some connectivity to the internet, so it is more vulnerable.
That is true.
Right.
You can't get away from it. There are wireless that are more radio-based. And so, for example, the intersection on, there's the one,
and I get they're more remote and less, but.
So the ones on Britain and Alameda Taylor, Pogos away out on the side there, those would need to probably be based on like more cell modem. Okay. So that would be dependent on a telecom. The one that's on industrial with the darker blue has more of a straight line, so it could be based on a radio, and that would directly connect into your fiber backbone.
I see. Okay, and there's not a rationale to kind of connect fiber all the way through on industrial to do that?
There could be. I think from the standpoint of if more signals go in, that would be the recommendation. So there were actually a couple signals on the stretch between Hawley to actually all the way out to the south. There were a couple signals that were put in for developers, and partially this master plan came about was because those were installed and weren't interconnected to the smart corridor system, even though they were along the fiber. So all that to say, this provides guidance to staff to include those. But yeah, you could do more fiber off to as more development projects, or as you put more signals on as the need arises.
Okay, and then that's helpful. And then I have one follow-up on that last one, then just a separate question. Do we not own the industrial and Holly Street traffic light? That's not shown here, or am I missing that?
That's a Caltrans signal.
Even though it's not, that's Caltrans, even though it's on city property? Why is that the case?
Because it's really directly, adjacent to the overpass or the bridge, and so Caltrans, they like to maintain their priority to ensure that their main line doesn't get.
But is that still connected into the fiber network of the smart corridor, and is it still part of that, or do they operate completely separately?
I believe that's correct. That signal is connected, and even the signals along El Camino are interconnected.
They're interconnected all through the smart corridor. Yeah. Okay, that's super helpful on that. And then the last, I guess, more of a question, kind of comment, maybe. Obviously it's we're looking at several millions of dollars for this from a budgeting standpoint. Is there a thought around where the funding's coming from? Do we anticipate that we can go after, grant money for this? What's sort of the thought around the funding for this long term?
So for phase one, we have a funding plan. Some of it is included in existing CIPs. Some are new CIPs that will go into effect in July 1. So phase one is taken care of. Beyond that, this is more of a planning document kind of guideline. And as we get closer to those phases, the first item on phase two is coming with a funding plan for the rest of it. So we could look at any opportunity that's out there, and grants are not excluded.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Adam. Appreciate that. Councilmember Collins?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Hannah and Brian, for your presentation. I'd like to, if we could, dig a little deeper into this fiber versus wireless issue. Security issues aside, in a perfect world, would wireless have all the capabilities of fiber, and would it be superior or preferred? Because of, I mean, many things, but I think the first thing comes to mind is lack of, of expense and undergrounding it and that sort of thing. I mean, can you give me some more information on that? I'm not really understanding it.
The biggest parallel I try to explain is no different than in your home. You can hardwire with an Ethernet cord into your router, or you could use your Wi-Fi. There may be some differences, and there may be some interference to your Wi-Fi as opposed to using the cord. That's probably the easiest parallel I can give. Wi-Fi is used pretty regularly in these kinds of situations, unless you're really doing a long haul or heavy data processing, or you might have like a lot of video cameras along a stretch. It might get bogged down from the bandwidth side, and fiber can go up to gigabits per second and a lot more than the wireless. So it's kind of a balance between cost effectiveness to underground, specifically if you're just trying to reach one intersection. But outside of that, there are some bandwidth considerations.
Okay, yeah, that's helpful. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ron. I don't see any other questions, so I've got a couple. So my first one, timing and budget. First, I'm very encouraged how thorough this is and how many different dimensions and approaches we're going to look at here, and things we're going to upgrade, from the pedestrian heads to the communication to battery packs, kind of all dimensions of this, which is fantastic. And happily, I mean, this is not, doesn't strike me as an overwhelming budget challenge. I mean, this is, roughly $8 million and change to revamp the whole thing. And I'm just curious if we wanted to really lean into this and fund half of this next year and the other half 2 years later. I mean, could we pull all this in 4 or 5 years, or are we really looking at 2033 to get everything to the next level?
So, Mr. Mayor, thank you for that question. It's a very observant position. As with all master plans, it really does look at all the projects that we have, and as Ryan kind of alluded to, basically we're looking at kind of what kind of projects can be done. Kind of low-hanging fruit. Obviously, those are the ones that you want to do really quickly, and then also looking at some of the other projects that might be dependent upon one another. In other words, you can't do the second one without doing the first, so it has to follow a certain sequence. But this is the recommendation of the master plan, is in that sequence. However, if this is something that the council really wants us to look at a little bit more thoroughly, or to advance some of the projects a little bit quicker than what is identified, perhaps what I would suggest is, this is something that we could look at as part of the CIP plan, where we could actually start rolling in some of the projects in sooner, and while keeping the master plan kind of intact, if you will. So we're still identifying those projects that we need to do, but maybe the sequence is just a little bit different, but we'll bring it forward in the CIP plan. And then I think Ryan also had indicated this is really a living document. So this is going to be changing, because as you know, technology changes very, very quickly. And so what we're thinking now is what we could do today, probably 2 years from now, is like, why are we thinking about that? We should be looking at something different. So this is going to be modified or amended over a course of time, just because, again, technology changes. Some things come up. There might be some, additional funding mechanisms that might be available that we could actually, install some different type of improvements a little bit faster, a little bit quicker. And so my suggestion, if it is something that council wants to move some of the projects forward a little bit faster, we do it through the CIP process, rather than kind of massaging it too much in the master plan process.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. I think that makes sense, and I'm comfortable with that approach, not looking to rewrite any strategic planning here tonight, but I personally am quite supportive of advancing more of these quicker, and we can discuss it at length when we get into budget season. And like I said, I think it's great. Something this impactful doesn't have to be $25 million, so I do think there's opportunity there. My next question is on just the communication. When we see these signals now laced together, what will that mean? I mean, does this mean, obviously we can reach out and try to, change the schedules on a more real-time basis perhaps, but, are we also expecting there to be timing as we connect these? Like when I see that orange line and highlight going down San Carlos Avenue, does that mean those lights are gonna, actually coordinate flows of traffic in, kind of a coordinated way, or is it just more, makes it easier for us to update things?
It does both. It allows you to more to be able to monitor and operate your signals remotely, but one of the key things is it does provide that extra dimension to be able to coordinate the signals. So actually, there is a project that is starting up soon, looking at El Camino, as well as some adjacent signals of trying to deploy an adaptive system. Adaptive just means it's based on signal timing that uses an algorithm. So it's using traffic counts in real time, using the sensors that are out there, collecting that data and adjusting the signal timing. Because traditional methods for signal timing may just be time-based. So that there's 500 feet between signals, average speed is X, and we time it. We offset it a little bit so that you get that green wave of cars kind of moving through. That's the traditional one. That works really well if you have very predictable traffic patterns. In certain cases, especially we're seeing in a lot of cases post-pandemic, the traffic patterns have not been consistent or vary significantly. So that's where a system like an adaptive system can be much more appropriate, because it will adjust and factor in those live counts. So and you need the communications so the signals and the controllers can kind of work off each other. Ultimately, it also connects to the central system that provides some of that background information too.
Got it. But when you go down the path of the adaptive system, as part of that adaptation, that kind of flow coordination between the lights as well, it's not just optimizing each light?
Yeah, it factors in the flow so improving coordination along the corridor, but also looking at because some traditional signal timing coordination will prioritize a main street at the disadvantage of side streets. So again, adaptive could help factor in like how do we minimize some of that side street delays, and hopefully in certain cases reduce complaints that you get on, hey, my side never turns green. It gets skipped all the time. That's hopefully what some of it will do, because they're may not be getting skipped. It's just it's a really just long phase.
Got it. And I'm particularly pleased we're moving that El Camino project into this year. I think that's great. But that's relying on existing sensors. What are our existing sensors and how limited are they?
So the city relies a lot upon inductive loops. So you can see the cutouts in the, which is really based on magnets. So as a vehicle, which is will be detected that way. In the master plan, recommendations are to utilize at this time, or the recommendation is to use video detection. A big portion of that is because once you put the cameras up, it uses the video feed and sensors and ultimately back-end algorithms to detect vehicles as well as bicycles, and can distinguish between some of those. So that's why one of the recommendations is a video detection system to provide some of that capabilities, as well as provide more of that lane-by-lane detection to feed into this system like the adaptive system.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Thank you. Like that's one I would love to move up is just getting cameras on all our signals, because I have no doubt the software on the back end will keep improving and getting better, but it just needs that input, right? So as soon as possible on that, from my view of the world. And then are there any just rethinking just raw methodology, like for example, our signals feel frustrating, I think, sometimes to the users, to me. I've experienced this myself, because it's not just 2 cycles, right? We also have both left-hand turn waves that have to go as well. So it's almost like everything is a 6-cycle loop. But often no one is turning left, right? And so I know when we detect, we can do better than that. But our signals aren't always impacted. So I do get asked, why don't we have left turn yellow arrows where it's kind of yield permissive? You see that, I've seen that all over the country, and it just feels like we've locked that all down into these hard left turn arrows that, don't feel that efficient when you're driving through them.
Yeah, there's nothing that prevents that. Actually, most of the infrastructure that's out there probably can already handle it. That's more of an operational programming thing. So that's more probably on the traffic study side of looking at an intersection and seeing whether it, left turn volume, because with yield, like a flashing yellow, I think was kind of what you're talking about. You want to make sure that there isn't a certain number of conflict. There are some recommendations on what is the oncoming opposite traffic, and how many left turns do you have, how many conflicts would you have during a certain period of time, and does it make sense to make it permissive? A permissive left turn, meaning it doesn't have a dedicated phase, they have to go when safe. But again, that's more of an operational standpoint, and you can program the controller to do that. And so that's a little bit, we were kind of more focusing on infrastructure upgrades to provide just the infrastructure to allow staff to do more of those operationals.
Got it. Yeah, that's what I was perceiving, but I'm glad to hear that's a tool in the toolkit. And is that sort of thing something that is in our toolkit that we're actively considering as we work through these various signal planning?
It is, and as part of this project, we will upgrade signal timing and phasing at all of our signals. When appropriate, that could be considered, but as Ryan mentioned, there's a lot of things into play. There's pedestrian crossing, so if you have a certain number of pedestrians, you want them protected with a red light. So all of that has to be considered on when a treatment is appropriate at what location. And we are going to look at all of that.
Got it. Yeah, I know there's a lot that goes into it, so. Doesn't stop us all from having opinions while we're sitting at that red light, though. Terrific. Those were my questions, and again, I'm very supportive of all this, and just can't wait to get into it. So call me the big spender on this one. Terrific. I do not see any other questions or comments. If not, do we have any public comment on this? Now would be the time to raise your hand if you're logging in on Zoom. Do we have any public comment on this item?
I do not have any slips for in-person, and there are no hands on Zoom.
Looks like Nathan would like to make another comment. Welcome. Yeah, sure.
Surprisingly, I have just a couple questions.
Well, mostly I applaud you for hanging out with us till 10 p.m. Thank you for that.
This is really interesting. So can we go back to that other site, actually? I had a question about running the new fiber lines. Is there any way to run them through existing pipes, like sewer or anything like that, to make it more cost effective? Or if you are going to run a line, to future-proof it, put a pipe in so you can run the wire through it, like for future, upgrades?
There are opportunities if they're there. There's cost sharing. If, for example, there's empty conduit, there are cities that will work with telecom providers or buy it from them, but we typically don't find much existing infrastructure to use.
Okay. I was just curious. Like through a sewer line, you couldn't wrap it in electric tape or something, and just send that thing through? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just curious to know if you could, if it's really want to be a closed loop system for security reasons, so you don't have isolated areas, anyway, that's just a question.
Yeah, all right. No, thank you, Nathan. I'm sure they'll look at all cost-saving opportunities. Our Public Works Department's good at that, so. Terrific. Any online hands raised?
No, there are no hands.
All right, then we'll move past public comment. And any final comments before we make a motion to approve this? If not, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move to adopt Resolution 2024-47.
Correct.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of San Carlos approving the traffic signal master plan and authorizing the Public Works Director to update and approve amendments to the master plan as needed.
I'll second.
Great. We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Collins?
Yes.
Councilmember Venkatesh?
Yes.
Councilmember Rack?
Yes.
Vice Mayor McDowell?
Yes.
And Mayor Dugan.
Yes. Great. We have a approved traffic signal master plan, and we're all excited to continue working on that. So thank you, everyone. And with that, we'll move on to item 12, agenda setting. I don't see anything formally listed, but do one of my colleagues have something to consider for a future agenda? Seeing none, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.